I would like to call the meeting to order of the Litchfield Budget Committee. This is October 30th, 2014, and if we can start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so this is our continuance of looking at the town budget. We will start with public input, and I believe we do have some public input.
I'm going to move over to talk at public input tonight. Chris Pascucci, 12 Colonial Drive. I want to read something out of the, it's an older version, the Basic Law of Budgeting in the LGC book. This board here went through the roles of the Budget Committee, and this one's kind of redundant and because we've spoken about it. The purpose of the Budget Committee is to assist voters in the prudent appropriation of public funds. But below it, there's something interesting, and I just want to read for the public. It says, since all departments naturally tend to want more money in order to better perform the functions they are charged with, the Budget Committee becomes an arbiter, given power by the legislature to reconcile these appropriation requests to maintain the tax load within manageable proportions. The relationship between the Budget Committee and the governing body creates some natural tension. The system is designed to ensure that more than one set of minds considers the issues. The Budget Committee can second-guess the governing body by voting to propose amounts for various purposes that are higher or lower than amounts proposed by the governing body. A little debate and disagreement is normal in the budget process, but local officials should conduct these proceedings with civility and respect. In the heat of the process, it can be easy to get caught up with who is in charge or who is right. What is really important, however, is that a good result is reached for the community. In the end, the voters are the ones who will decide what the budget will be. Ultimately, the citizens are the beneficiaries when the governing body and Budget Committee members carry out their respective responsibilities without taking criticism personally and present voters with good faith recommendations from which to approve the budget. Those are not my words. Those are words from what probably most people in this board have read from the LGC book, but I wanted people in the audience to see it. These are my words. This Budget Committee exists because the voters want that second set of eyes, an independent arbiter, a group of people to ask the tough questions and to dig deep down into the budget. The Budget Committee is not an extension of either the Selectmen or the School Board. The Budget Committee does not exist to rubber stamp requests, nor do you exist to slash budgets. And I'm not saying that this board does either of those. You are here to be that second set of eyes. During Monday's Selectmen meeting, while Selectman Byron was presenting the highlights of last week's Budget Committee meeting, Selectman Lemire had some disagreements with what he heard and blurted out, "What is this Budget Committee? What happened to them?" Now, you guys could all watch it, on the replay. I did watch it. I was there for part of the meeting. I'm not sure exactly what he was thinking when he said that or what he means by that, and you all can, like I said, watch it. But from my perspective, I don't see anything wrong with this Budget Committee. And the only thing that I can see that happened is that you're taking your responsibilities very seriously. Try to create a budget that the voters can finally approve after coming off of 2 years where the voters rejected what you put in front of them. I see a very detail-oriented group of individuals that take the job very seriously. You know your boundaries, you know your legal limits as described in the RSA, but you clearly are not here going along just to get along. All elected representatives are sitting in the same sandbox, and it's the right thing to expect everyone to play nice in that sandbox. But let's not confuse playing nice with compromising your beliefs, values, and obligations to all the taxpayers here in Litchfield. Whether extremely wealthy, struggling to put gas in the car, working college students, or retirees on fixed incomes, this Budget Committee represents them all. This job is not fun, it's not easy, but it's a necessary part of the budget process here in Litchfield. This committee must continue to ask those very tough questions. Asking for rationale and justification to any or every budget request is not a personal attack. It is your responsibility to those that elected you to your seat. As the LGC manual clearly states, the relationship between the Budget Committee and the governing body creates some natural tension, and that's true, but that's okay. It just means you're effectively doing your job. Unfortunately, this budget committee many times hears comments like, you can't cut that, it's our policy, or you can't question that, we have a contract. And finally, that's not your purview. Look, the budget presented to the voters of Litchfield is the budget committee's budget. The budget on the ballot on election day does not belong to the selectmen or the school board. If the voters say yes, the budget committee gets the credit. If the voters say no, the budget committee gets the blame. The bottom line, dollar amount, including every dollar in each line item that adds up to the bottom line, is your purview. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other community input? All right. Moving on, review and additions to the agenda. I am not aware of any changes. And the review and acceptance of the minutes. Now, I do apologize. I did not realize till this afternoon that I had not forwarded them to you on Monday when I got them. So it's up to the committee whether you want to wait another week to give you a chance to review them, or if you've had a chance to review them today and you want to approve them tonight. It's up to you. Did everybody get a chance to download them and read them?
It sounds like all committee members haven't had an opportunity.
Okay, so we'll hold those off till next week then. Going over correspondence, during the meeting last week, we had enrollments that were forwarded to us. We had 2 separate questions, which were from Chris Pascucci, directed at the selectmen, that we received copies of. We received copies of employee contracts from the selectmen, and we had, that was this afternoon, we had a salary comparison which had been asked for, comparing town administrator and town manager salaries to other communities, other towns. So those are the correspondence we received during the week, this week. All right, so then jumping right into budget review. One of the first things that we asked about last week that we said we would defer to this week is revenues. So do we want to start with revenues?
We can start with revenues, how you would like to do it. We have the fire chief here, if you want to get him released early, that
Yep,
would be an option.
whatever works for you. We can jump right into the budget and then go back to revenue.
Why don't we go to the fire chief then? And
Okay.
Go to the fire budget. The notable areas of change here, 110, the movement of the fire chief through wage plan. The 120, 127, 128, different wages. We broke it out in different ways for call firefighter. All of those we've been able to reduce a bit from this year. That's based on expectation of call. And the elimination we did after the first quarter of this year of weekend coverage. We're going to see a little bit of savings in health insurance. We mentioned last week the movement of the telephone service in 341 over to the IT budget, so I'm not pretending that's a real savings. That's just a shift from one department to another.
Why are you looking at me again?
I'm trained now. You have me trained. The notable item probably here, if you look at a lot of those other lines, we've shifted $100 here or there in some places. By the time you scroll down to the 600s, the 660, 662, we've combined a couple departments. Just tires have been broken out as distinct from other vehicle repairs. We've decided that tires are parts of vehicles, so we've combined those all into one vehicle repair line. So you'll see this through multiple departments. Dollars should stay the same. We're just kind of trying to compress those things. Probably the largest area we should talk about is 740, the equipment purchase line. See a $10,000 increase there. The way that this line has worked in the past is as items age, they will be replaced. And we've been carrying sort of about a $10,000 flat amount for that. This year, the proposal is to increase that to $20,000, allows us to continue some of the repair, replacement of aging equipment, and then $12,000 for replacement of one of the thermal imaging cameras we have. The current camera we have is a 1990s vintage machine. It is it's an earlier model, it's bulky, it's heavy, we're at the point where it's technologically obsolete. And more than, the notable thing was earlier this year, we had, that camera would sustain some damage in the training. It was able to be repaired, parts are limited and costly. So it's time. I think we've gotten just about all the value we can get out of that older camera.
Is there any reason why you've only spent half of what you have in the budget this year?
Timing?
I mean, year's almost over.
Yep. And you'll see throughout most departments, in places where departments have had discretion, people have held back because of the default budget this year. So, we're not spending just so I can sit here and show you that I'm at 90%.
So are you going to spend the $18,000 that's in the budget for this year?
We are planning to purchase a gear dryer. We just actually put the washer extractor out, so that project, we've got the funding to do that, so yes, the plan is to do the dryer as well, which is a 2-year project. So that's about a $9,000, $10,000 expenditure.
Yeah. And there's about $8,900 remaining in that line.
Yeah, what is it again, Chief?
Gear dryer to dry the
Oh, really?
protective
Okay,
clothing.
yeah.
Right now, we lay it out all over the station and let nature dry it, which is anywhere from a day to 2 days, depending on weather. This will have it dry within a matter of a couple of hours.
Excuse me.
How was one thermal image, how did you decide on one thermal imaging camera and not more? Let me take a step back. All right, we had the opportunity, I say we, Mr. Valancourt, Chairman Couture, and myself had the opportunity to do a town tour yesterday. And I want to thank Mr. Byron for hosting that tour and for the town and fire department for allowing us to visit. Part of our visit was at the fire department, and we had the opportunity to see these thermal imaging cameras in person, right, in how they work and how they operate. And to put it quite frankly, right, this camera that's being referenced, it's a brick. I mean, it's big, it's massive. You can imagine a firefighter with all of the gear that they already have, plus carrying this thermal imaging camera, which potentially saves lives, right? You know, I am definitely for replacement of the camera, but how is one the right number? The way it was described to us yesterday is there's several, one per fire truck, right?
There's 3 of them.
3 of them, and the idea is that you'd like 4, right? One per truck?
Ideally, I mean, that way if there's a shift in vehicles and so forth, I guess to answer the question, one, obviously at a $12,000 to $14,000 per camera expense, to try and do one a year spreads that expense out.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I'd be happy to replace them all at once, but then again, that you get into a cycle of then they're all due around the same time again. By doing one a year, like we do the apparatus, we try to spread it out over 5 years. We're not buying 4 new fire trucks in 1 year, we're spreading them out.
Sure.
So, and again, technology is so changing that what we buy this year or next year, in 3 years, is going to be a generation or 2 old. So by buying on a planned basis, you tend to stay a little more current with, and have at least one of the newest technology is the goal.
The intention of the question is to ensure one's the right number and not more than one, right? If you as fire chief are coming to us as a committee and saying 1 is the right number for now, and we have a plan, so be it.
I think 1 is yeah, 3 would be great, but again, there's pros and cons both ways.
So this isn't like the tasers where you need the same technology, like, you'd want all the same brand, model, and year of tasers, if I recall that conversation, but this is different. You don't need the same brand, model, and year of cameras, right?
Well,
Well,
Well, I'm
don't
sorry,
worry, you're not getting tasers.
You know what, I'm sorry.
You got them all excited about the
It's two
tasers.
different departments, I know, I'm sorry. I guess I should have directed that part of the question to you. Okay, I apologize.
no, I think I'm just,
Okay,
I'm
I
just
guess let me
thinking
get
all
to-
the things we could do with the taser.
Let me get, the real question is, if they change models next year, and we get a second one next year to replace, and it's a different model, that doesn't screw up.
That's a training issue more than anything else.
Well, I think it's a yes and no question. And I say that because in some pieces of equipment, it is very critical to have consistency in the same model, style, air packs being an example.
Okay. Right.
Air packs all need to be the same.
Right.
Cameras, we have a couple of different meters, carbon monoxide and multi-gas meters. That technology changes. So while we have 4 of the same that we bought over the last couple of years, they're they're different firmware versions. Unless, again, you buy 4 cameras, 4 meters today. But again, sometimes that's good because, again, you get them into a cycle. Meters have a very short lifespan. So does the technology change that fast? No, not really. I mean, the 3 cameras we have are actually different manufacturers, as well as somewhat different technology.
Okay.
But they all still fundamentally work the same.
So in a fire, they could grab one and,
They're more or less, and I don't
it's-
want to say they're foolproof, but they're an on-off.
okay.
There's not a calibrating, you turn them on, you get a screen, it's to a degree like a TV. You turn
Okay.
it on, it's either gonna work or it's not. There's not a lot of fine tuning or calibrating or so forth that's involved.
So to follow up on Andrew's question, then one would do, and then next year,
Yes.
and then the year after, and until the whole thing's replaced, if they're slightly different,
Right.
it's okay.
When we were on the tour, Chief, we were told that one of the cameras does not have any spare parts made for it anymore.
That would be the oldest
Is
bullet,
that-
which,
is that
that's,
is that correct?
parts are very limited, and that's the one that
And
Jason
then we were
referred
told
to.
that the other one would be going out of spare parts in the next year or so.
More than likely,
Yep.
because of the age.
And we were also told that one of the cameras currently has a tendency to lock up at
We saw
times.
that yesterday.
The oldest one.
So which one will you be replacing?
The one that we've had, it had issues, and quite honestly, I was surprised they were able to fix it. When they said they could fix it, I expected it wasn't gonna be able to be fixed, just because of the age of it. The fix was reasonable enough, I think it was $600 or $700 to fix it. They had the parts, but they were very candid that you're just lucky we had the
Right.
parts, the case, and, they were very minor parts. If it had been the true, the brain or the guts, if you will, they wouldn't have, it wouldn't have been fixable. And that's the one, so we run that, on one of the trucks that, I don't want to say a reserve trucks,
Would
it's
be
on a
the
backline truck.
last to go
So,
out.
Yeah.
It was also explained to us, Chief, that the cameras, I'll call them newer, right? I don't know
Yep.
what vintage they are, but they're certainly not new.
Right. Well, they're all at least 8,
Right.
9 years old.
Right. So it was explained to us that these thermal imaging cameras, and I saw it, they have sensors to measure the heat that fires put out, right?
Correct.
300 degrees was the number that
They
stuck in my
range,
head,
yeah.
right? But because of the intensity of materials and flames and fires, that exceeds the 300. So these cameras, even though they have a maximum, I'm sure I'm not doing this justice.
Yep.
Maybe you want to, do you know where I'm going with it?
I do,
Okay.
I do. So I guess the easiest analogy is, because I think we're all familiar with black and white TV. That's what we have. That's what we have, black and white technology. And now you can go out and buy a, HD, LED, that's what's out there now. So
So you're not able to see the true hottest of hots through the cameras you
we
have
see
now?
it purely in grayscale. So
Okay.
the brighter it is, the hotter it is. But, one of them does do temperature ratings, but it doesn't, we're seeing much higher temperatures than they typically will register. The newest technology out there is, all I can say is it's just incredible. And, you know, you get full color, you get variations in shading and coloring that will truly, you know, and you can actually almost see the room based on that and what you're looking at, as opposed to now it's purely grayscale. It's a blotch of gray or white or somewhere in between. And it will give you temperature ratings, you know, well over 1,000 degrees.
Are there grant programs that you could, so purchase one in the budget, are there grant programs to get additional?
Not really. They're not a priority in any of the grants any longer. They were when technology was first out there. And, you know, and it's a military, I mean, the military released the technology after using it for years. And there was a big push, you know, through the early assistance to firefighters grants to get cameras. Now, you know, they're, I don't want to say a dime a dozen, but everybody's got at least one. You know, a lot of police departments have got them because they've found them useful in searches and so forth. So no, they're not, unfortunately.
Would it be any sense, Chief, to getting 2 cameras and that one of them you can no longer repair from what it sounds like? And the second thing is that you're looking to try and put one on each vehicle.
Right.
And you have right now currently 3. So you're not going up in quantity.
Right.
You're only
You just
staying
be
level.
Moving
Would
the
it
last
make-
year up.
Would it make sense to have 2?
Yeah, I mean, if we were to do them, I'd do them, you know, 2 and 2, ideally then, just again to keep, if we're gonna do more than one, let's be consistent when we do them, so that we're not dealing with 4 different, we're dealing with 2 different, you know. But, again, they're not that complicated a thing that if they are different, I mean, we're running 3 different ones right now, and it hasn't been an issue. You know, but sometimes parts-wise and service-wise, it's easier to have, you know, charger-wise, that would be a benefit charger-wise, because that way you can take one out of another truck and charge it in a different truck, where now you can't do that.
If you went for 2, would you consider them as a separate warrant article? And no means no shouldn't be an issue then, because you get everything you want on the separate warrant article with a fire. Yeah,
It'd have to go by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, just
The
think
Board of
about it.
Selectmen has only put 1 in the budget, so I can't say that we need 2 or
Well, I'm just-
want to put 2
Yeah.
in there. I think it makes sense after having gone down to the station and seen them. That's my personal opinion, but I don't know.
I mean,
I would say probably it would make sense it could make sense in a warrant article.
yeah, I mean, we did something last year with a fire, didn't we?
We did something 2 years ago, I think, Bill, where it was the
monitor.
The monitors.
Okay, and
Yeah.
it went just like that, and, you know, this is the same kind of thing, it would go just like that.
Well, it's not just that it saves lives, it also saves people's houses. I mean,
Yeah.
as an example, there was a discussion that Captain Nichol had about chimney fires and seeing
Yeah.
whether it spread into the walls. And he's able to use the cameras to take and scan the walls and see if there's any fire behind the wall. And if it feels warm to him, he's, at this point in time, without a camera, he would have to just knock a hole in the wall. So it helps from other aspects as well.
See, from what I've heard, I'd have no problem with 2, personally, but I want to see it as a separate article.
What I would wonder is, keeping 1 in the budget, but putting a second one on a warrant article, because it seems as though 1 is critical, 1 is necessary. The second one, it'd be nice to have the second one at the same time, so then we give the people the option of, you got 1, here's the reason why 2 would make more sense, and then they have the choice to vote on, do you want to do the second one in 1 year, or do you want to wait?
I would really not put them as split like that. I'd put them both together.
All right.
Other questions before I move on to other lines?
Go ahead.
Okay. For 128, the Saturday and Sunday coverage, I know this committee has talked about that coverage quite a bit over the past couple years. I just wanted to be clear as to what risks we're taking as a town, as a community, by not having that coverage in the budget in London. Anything?
None that we're not taking every day after 4 o'clock until 7 o'clock in the morning. We are staffed as a call company in all of those hours. So on a week, just like weekday nights, Weekends, the call company responds. And the other thing is, the frequency of those calls. If the weekend calls happen to come in the couple hours we have somebody in the station, that's great. If the calls come in later in the day, we're back to what we do during the week when we respond to calls as a call company.
And there's been no, I mean, I've tracked it right along, there's been no appreciable change either way on the number of calls over the past several years during that 9 to 2 on Saturday or Sunday.
It just seems counterintuitive, right?
Nor have we had any calls go unanswered during that time frame.
I was at church, no one disturbed by.
Well, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't think so much as the calls, but I know, like, the community, getting fire permits and things that happen a lot on weekends.
Right, people are home on weekends and yet.
Yeah, I just wondered, have you heard any feedback as to
We
people
really,
not
I
being-
mean, we've had 1 or 2 people that have, still don't know at this point and have come in, but the state is going to an online permit program, so that, as soon as they've kind of rolled it out, but they haven't put out everything that we need. I was having this conversation with the ranger yesterday that, we're ready to go, but they haven't given me any information to share with the community to say, here's how you go about it. So I'm really not going to go out and advertise it's out there and ready to go if we don't have the information to point you in the right direction. And they're still working on that. But beyond that, any of the things that we used to do, the Easter egg hunt, we still cover those. Just instead of sending the 2 people that were on duty, we bring somebody in to do it. So.
Do you have any more questions, Ingrid?
No.
I had a question, just under 430, Fire Department Station Repairs and Maintenance, and you have, $4,000 in there. I'm just wondering, is there anything in particular that you have in mind that needs to be done in the coming year to the station?
Well, that's an open-ended question. We did do quite a bit of repairs this year, and with the assistance of the prisoner program, got quite a bit of painting done earlier this year. We kind of got, some Band-Aids put on where Band-Aids needed to be put on, but as far as major, no. I mean, I think, the bigger question is what's, the long-term plan for the facility itself.
Well, that's another line item, though, where you really haven't spent much money this year, right?
Well, that's why I'm wondering, with $4,000, what,
They didn't spend that, though, either, so they-
No, I mean, we've spent 1620 to date there.
yeah.
Does that include the apportioned amount for the prisoners? Or
I
did you take that from another line?
think that ended up coming out of another line.
So there's money.
Yeah,
that was
most of what
used-
we spent was honestly on a lift, to get up to be able to repair the woodwork, the trim around the windows and so forth. So most of the labor is either on-duty staff or the call guys coming in and doing it and so forth, so.
Well, I think the reason both Cindy and I raised it is because you basically have the same amount in next year's budget that you have this year, and you really haven't spent this year.
And it's kind of, don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Yeah, and again, I mean, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but, those places where we had a little bit of discretion when things weren't the immediate crisis, we held back a little bit, because, we're running tight global budget at this point, so I've asked every department head to kind of be cautious. So, yeah, we didn't go do some projects and some things, so,
And 2
you're
years-
right, though. but-
2 years in a row you had to do
Yeah,
that.
And
too.
some of
Yeah.
that, a little bit, I don't have the estimates yet because I don't have the plumber. Some of that is going to get used up to install the washer and dryer
Okay.
for electrical and plumbing, upgrades that need to be done. But again, we're talking an older building that, at any point something, could I spend it? Yeah, I could easily spend it. But,
I know that.
it's, you can only put so many holes or Band-Aids on, holes here and there before you're just wasting money.
It's an interesting point. I mean, you sat in front of this committee last year, a year ago, right? We had the same discussion. What's the long-term plan, right? So a year later, what's our long-term plan?
We're starting through the capital committee to take a look, and then obviously facilities are part of it. Actually, this past week, selectmen discussed in a little more depth, dusting off some of the plans that we've done in the past, and really trying to jumpstart that project, looking at feasibility of expansion on site, as well as we have no shortage of older plans that we just need to take a look at, see what's still realistic. So, the hope is over the next year or two, we know the building's not going anywhere, but, we've also noticed that when your budgets are defeated 2 years in a row, it kind of slows your zeal to pursue a large new building project at the same time. So, hopefully we'll be in the position that, over the next year, we'll be able to have something a little more concrete to bring back. Because, we know that building is not sustainable. And we're sort of between a rock and a hard place we know we have aging vehicles there. Problem is, we can't propose replacing the aging vehicles because they won't fit in the building. So it's our own chicken and egg type problem.
How much life do we have left on the fire apparatus, the trucks?
Which,
Well, I don't know, the oldest one.
Minus 5?
we're constantly, and to Jason's point, the two of the oldest trucks are really at the point where we should be in the process of ordering, because again, it's a year, you're anywhere from 8 to 12 months out from ordering. One of the
Does that help you?
move the, so the oldest engine 2 is a 1995 with an average of a 20-year lifespan. So that's kind of beyond that. But one of the things is, when we're looking at the size of the doors, the trucks we have now barely clear, not only on the sides, but on the top. And we've had issues with things getting forgotten to be put down that extra inch, and the top of the door gets clipped. One of the things that, I've been open to look at is consolidating 2 trucks into one. But we can't even consider that in the current facility, because that truck wouldn't fit. It'd be way too big for that building. And that's probably what we're gonna come to, the longer we push out replacements, is having to consolidate 2 into one. And basically running what's called a pumper tanker. Carrying 2,500 gallons of water with a cab for 6 people and a 2,000-gallon pump. But that truck's going to be bigger, a little bigger than the tanker is now, because you're adding an additional half a cab on it. So, but we're behind in the replacement schedule. We've been fortunate because they don't get a lot of use. We did a fleet analysis last year, and nothing came back with a critical need for replacement. But the oldest trucks, where you really need to start thinking about getting the process moving. And again, we're looking at between $400,000 and $500,000 per truck. That's why when you spread them out, ideally with, if you go with a true 20-year cycle, with 4 trucks, that's 5 a year, 5 years. It's kind of, a lease purchase program, or it's a nice spread. When you start having to buy them, one this year, one next year, or one the year after, and another one 2 years after that, you start having some significant loans or expenditures, so.
Do we have any capital accounts? It seems as though something like a fire truck with a huge one-time hit.
No, because when we used to spread them out for every 5 years, it was a standard part of the budget of X
Yeah.
amount of money each year.
Purchase.
With basically just setting the reserve fund up that way,
Yeah.
pay as you go.
What's
Then
our
we- then we-
newest
Then we
one?
get out of that cycle.
Engine 1.
In what
is
year?
a
2004.
2004.
That was the last new truck this,
And that was a demo, if I recall. That was, in other words, that was a demonstrator model. Wasn't spec'd for the town.
I think you're right.
Any other questions for
Oh,
fire
yeah.
department?
No, I guess just a comment, right?
Could
It sounds
hardly
like it's a top priority, right, to come up with a plan, and that needs to be a focus of.
Well, like Jason said, we've got a
Get to it
few
eventually.
plans. It's just, dusting them off and really looking at, whether or not they're feasible, because they're now at least 3 to 4 years old.
Bill, you had more?
Yeah, line 120, call firefighter wages. I don't understand the number, and let me tell you why I don't understand it. Your budget this year is $79,000, and so far through the 10 months, you spent $48,000. Is that right, Jason?
Hold on, I gotta get back to that. Let's see, we got 49,316 we've spent, yes.
2 months left.
And you're looking for $77,000 next year. Last year, same point in time, you spent $61,000 and wound up with a year-end number of $71,000. I don't see how you can even justify $77,000. I mean, this is sort of like the call we used to do with the specials in the police department. It's really an unknown amount because you don't know how many fires you're going to be having to call wages on.
Yeah, and we're down, and that's, it did come down, based on that, looking at numbers and taking last year's 538, I think it was, incidents, using that as the average. I had done, back when we did this, had done a review of where we were at in July, and if you took July times 2, we were going to be hitting about 600 calls this year.
Yeah.
And then if I took January to August, end of August, and did it by month, it put us down around 525. So I kind of took the middle with 550. But again, it's right now we're at 440 calls, I think.
Yeah. Andrew, do you know what we ran in 2012?
I was just looking at that. In 2013, which I think you just said we were at 72.
Yeah, 71,595 number I had.
And this is one of the accounts that changed.
Right.
Line. So, wages. Do you remember what the old line was, Jason?
No, I don't.
I'm sorry, the old line?
Yeah, what we had called.
It was multiple.
Well, yeah, we aggregated a few things together. I mean, one of those is real easy. I mean, the repair wages, you can just take whatever the old one was and add 3,000 because we moved, repair wages used to be separate.
Okay.
But I think this would sort of still been primarily call was its own standalone line. Let's see.
Another search here. Call. No. You know what's right here. In 12, 47, 442. In 11, it was 76,000. In 10, it was 86,000.
Yeah, we've been coming down.
So,
So what was in 2013?
2012 or 13?
Yeah, I'm sorry. 2012.
47,442.
That sound right?
For 2012?
Yeah.
It looks like we budgeted 58,000 and we spent 47,000.
That would probably be right, because we moved additional, because that was before we moved some of these additional things, and that was before we implemented the stipend program, and the repair wages were outside, so that's going to be 7,000 or 8,000.
What you bring up to.
That would bring it, that we need to add to that historic number to get you an apples to
So, and
apples.
what's that come up to?
Well,
If you add it? So add it to it.
so I will.
48.
Okay, so 48 and 8's 56, so, okay,
56.
all right, so,
61, 71 last year, you're running clearly about 60,000 this year. Okay, that's my only,
it is, and it's an art. I mean, you tell me how many fires I'm going to have next year and how long they're going to be,
really a
So-
discussion that I want to get on the table for the
Yeah.
committee to decide if they like that number or not, because I have the same question on,
I have a question for you. I mean,
for me.
well, I mean, I looked at this line and I saw an actual spend of 72,000 this year, so this one didn't hit my radar because it sounded reasonable to me. So I'm just curious why the concern from yourself. Is it just looking at past years in a historic perspective?
This is completely unpredictable.
Right.
Okay? And when I see something that is higher than what we did the year before, and now the year before that, then I have to ask myself, why should it be this high for next year? Okay? And what is a reasonable number to have then?
Sure.
Because, as they say, it's a function of the number of calls you have. Okay? Had sort of the same question on the next line, which is the training wages. Because in that case, our budget this year is 49,000 and we spent 34?
Yeah, we're up to 36 right
36.
now.
Does that include this week?
That includes payroll of 10:30, yep.
Okay.
And can you foresee spending the rest of it this year?
Not at this point. And probably part of that is we only put 3 firefighters through Fire 1 this year. I do have one in EMT now that hasn't hit that yet, but we didn't do the 5, and we also didn't, I dropped it because we did not get the grant we were looking for. So that's part of that not expended as well, is we didn't get the grant, therefore we're not spending that grant match.
No, when I look at, excuse me, look at last year, we spent 36,000, something like that there. And I think I had the same discussion about it when we did that budget, whether the number was good or bad. Same time last year, we had spent $33,000. This year, we spent 30, what have you, and only one of spending 36. So I have a problem with 47,000. So, and again, I just throw that out for the committee can think about it. My last question is on line 140, full-time overtime firefighter. That looks like that's running low this year too, is that correct?
At the moment, yeah, we've spent 64.47 there so far.
Any reason why only 2 more months left to go.
Yeah, we've been lucky. We haven't had incidents at the end. It's the same function that we will look at with call.
Okay,
So, I think the guys are aware this is a tight budget year, so,
well, it should always feel that way though.
it is, but, when you don't have incidents that require overtime first thing in the morning or extended at the end of the day, that's where we've been lucky. I can't,
Okay,
And we've been fortunate this year not to have any significant incidents where we're looking at 8, 10, 12 hours at a whack either.
Andrew, do you know what we spent on this last year? This line, I didn't look that up.
Around 140, right?
Yeah,
We spent, $9,000, is that right? Overtime, but no, that's not it. That's another 140.
no,
More than that.
no, it should be about 12.
you have it, Jason?
It was a lot closer last year.
I don't have it, I don't have the number from, my sense is it was around 12, but
422010. 422010, 140. $9,025.21.
okay,
Okay.
all right, so,
Dispatch contract, that's 6 months payment, is that what it is? That's a fixed cost, we know about that for sure.
Thought we were paying a quarter.
I think we pay that quarterly.
So we haven't got.
Hold on, everyone's running 1,000 directions here on me, give me a second here.
Probably haven't got the third quarter bill yet.
Yeah, I think we just did get the third guy, hold on. What the heck is this?
We only pay it when it comes in, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's a fixed fee, though.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's, no.
no.
It's based upon the number of calls. It's a fixed.
Okay.
No, I don't know if this one is or not, because, to get back to the earlier question, I paid one bill half a year, $3,300.
That's what you did.
That's what we paid.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, on July 11th, first half dispatch,
All
3,300,
right, so
so,
it's twice a year.
yeah.
So the guesstimate was right on target.
Sometimes I'm
It
right,
is 66. So
sometimes I'm right.
had the right number of calls?
So much and then so much per call. Okay.
It may,
Okay.
I can look, I can't, once a year, I can't remember.
I know, yeah.
Pre-employment screening, another one that you're underrunning what you had in the budget this year.
Because we haven't had the opportunity to fill all 5 positions.
You still have open
Only done
position? How many?
2 to 3.
Okay.
And honestly, the problem has been, we've had several interested, but through the process have either washed out or backed out, so we've only put 3 on. We've interviewed probably 8, 9.
I'm sorry, what line was that, Phil?
That was
355.
355.
Thank you.
Go to line 635. Vehicle fuel. Is this the diesel or?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we've only spent $4,000 this year?
So far.
Well, it's been less than the 387 too, though.
That's also true.
Yeah, it's been less than what we project because the fuel's come down. We've been, I don't remember what we paid. Well, I mean, it fluctuates. Every load, we pay the price of the day whenever it's delivered.
Yeah, I have no
Beginning of the
problem
month.
with that.
But I believe it's also been, I know the last couple have been below the 387 that we budgeted too.
Yeah, I would suspect that next year, the diesel prices will be even lower. I mean, don't they track with the gas prices? Same stuff.
Not quite as
No,
good,
not
but
really, but
diesel typically runs significantly more than.
Well, it's more, but I'm saying the gasoline prices come down, I suspect the diesel prices come down.
But we're not on
proportionally.
any type of a contract, or we're paying the daily rate, so.
So I will tell you then, I don't understand why we go up to 8,500 for next year, given that we fully expect the fuel costs
Did it, the
to be
prices
cheaper
are up.
next year.
Okay, well, we now have the benefit of hindsight that we didn't have 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And, so, and I think we also probably looked at the projected diesel price from the federal government, the
Yeah.
fuel agency, that they put it out 2 months ago, and we probably looked at that. and
Gallons didn't change, it was just the price.
Yeah, and said, that's what it would be. So, yeah, you probably, if nothing changes, yeah, we're probably 1,000, 2,000 to the good.
Yeah.
And that could disappear very quickly when the market changes, so.
Yeah, if the world goes to pieces and the oil stops shipping, we're
Yeah.
gonna have a problem, yeah.
That's the line
By
that,
solar-powered fire trucks, right?
in 13, we spent $10,280.
How much?
$10,280.
Yeah, but that's, again, prices have changed.
Prices haven't gone down that much to substantiate
Ah.
a $4,000 swing.
Well, I mean, 10 months, $4,000, all they spent.
Do you guys,
Okay? No, wait.
No, I agree with your current analysis. I'm also going on what was spent in past years.
And again, the price, I mean, look at your own gasoline prices. It's come down. And the chief, I think, has already said the gallon's about the same.
We haven't, I
Yeah.
mean, we haven't adjusted the gallonage over the last 2 years that I'm aware of,
Yeah.
as far as the 2,200 that we anticipate using. The fluctuation's been on, and
price.
the year, to Andrew, that year, we were probably paying $4.10, $4.15 a gallon.
does the fire department pay the street rate, or is there no state taxes in that? Is that a state taxes
We do
deducted?
not pay the state tax, we pay federal tax. And that's probably a little bit of, would have gone up though, not down.
Right.
Because we were,
Right, taxes.
we
is-
were buying off-road
Okay.
up until about a year ago, beginning of this year, when
Okay.
we switched to road after a conversation that I had with the head of highway enforcement, and The issues over, technically, we're not exempt from, or exempt from the on-road diesel. Should have been using it, so we are.
Okay.
We're using the low sulfur, so that price did kick up, but we are exempt, and our agreement with Irving is that they don't charge us the state tax. They have to charge the federal tax, but not the state tax.
And this one's small. You're still buying the diesel fuel conditioner and anti-gel. It's just, did you combine the two?
By the gallon and treat it.
Because there's no line there.
It just wasn't worth breaking it out.
I agree. So that's in that number too.
Yeah.
Okay.
All set?
Yeah, I am.
Anybody else have a question about the fire budget? All right, one question I have is when we were at the station yesterday, it seems like the other day, there was discussion about the air packs. So now I don't see them in this budget here. Where are they? What's the plan?
Warrant article.
Yeah. Stay tuned for our December 11th presentation on warrant
Okay.
articles.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, given the numbers order of magnitude, right now, they're on the list the selectmen are considering for articles.
Okay.
Just air packs, everything where you go into fire to breathe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all pretty much the end of their life expectancy next year. Next year, 16, depends on when they were manufactured.
Although if you are feeling like putting an extra $160,000 in the fire budget, we could
I just wanted to know what the
shortcut that
plan
one.
was, because I
Yeah.
didn't see them, and
Right.
that was,
We'll
that
save
was our
that
understanding.
discussion to December.
Yeah, and that was our understanding yesterday, is that they, by law, have to stop using them next
They
year.
have a 15-year life
Yeah.
expectancy. Some of our bottles were November, December of 2001, and some were January, February of 2002, so we got to do something.
Do you have, is she correct that you have to stop using them by law?
Well, the DOT has a 15-year, on the bottle, the DOT only allows 15 years. So we don't have to stop using them, but we're going to be violating DOT ruling.
Ruling or law,
DOT standards.
Yeah.
So,
but not law?
I'm sure somewhere it's tied back to a law. I'm not going to sit here and try and
I
quote
just-
it, but,
Regulations have the effect of law.
yeah, so.
I think there's all
We
sorts
did
of other
apply for a
discussion
grant
points
this
as
year.
well with this.
Well,
And weren't successful, or
Yeah, still going to apply
hopefully
with
we're
a
going to
camera,
try it
doesn't work
again,
nowhere.
but we got to,
liability.
we don't have a lot of time to, hope and cross our fingers for a grant. We got to come up with a plan.
Okay.
So,
All right, so that's to be continued at
Doesn't have any fuel.
another date.
Hybrid.
You won't be
All
able to
right.
get, you won't be able to get them hydrostatic tested after this coming year.
Well, after the next time they're up, but correct.
All right, anything else for the fire department budget? If not, where are we going next?
Thank you, Chief.
You don't want to be fired.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't be there with you. I was at a National Weather Service meeting, so.
And just to, while we're changing here, just to say, the three of us went on a tour of the town facilities, very impressed with all of the tours we got. Your crew was wonderful. They had a lot of details about the equipment. They showed us things. The recycling center, highway. We had a pretty, police department, we had a very thorough, very informative. And I actually took the tours a couple of years ago, but just in the couple of years since, a whole bunch more information, just very, very impressed. And I do thank your,
Well, they enjoyed having some grown-up time because they've been in the schools all week in fire prevention. So it was nice to have an older audience.
That's cool.
it was really, yeah.
So I'd like to suggest we go through 4194.1, general government.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, you can handle general government.
Yeah. No, that's what, okay, can you
I'll give him my-
give him your souvenir copy? Okay. No. Okay, general government buildings, the main things here, again, we've relocated the meeting house fire alarm phone bill. We put another full week of the county prison community service program in. I was blazingly optimistic on how little we'd spend on propane this year. I proved to be wrong. So for all of you looking at my run rates and finding where I'm over, here's where I was under. Here's where I went the wrong way, so I'm trying to catch back up to a better number there. Those are really the changes in this budget. Everything else is maintain existing.
Sorry, and why is 7,200 not a good number for this year?
Because at our current rate of spend for this year, and knowing that it's getting colder, therefore we will use more propane. I'm expecting us to be at about 8,500.
We're under.
Yeah.
No, propane's the heat, what else? Is it?
Yeah.
We don't cook there.
Yeah. And again, I mean, this year we weren't helped by the first couple months of the year having some very cold days. So.
So you expected, I'm sorry, 8,500?
I'm thinking that we're gonna probably be about 8,500 this year.
We turn the degrees down 2 degrees.
You work with 7 women.
You know what I tell my daughters? I spend the extra money for a sweater.
Well,
And I say, heat your body, not the entire house. But that's just me.
but if you expect to spend 8,500 this year, why do you think you're going to spend an extra 1,100 on top of that next year?
Because the price is going up. So if I buy the same number of gallons, yeah, so that's it, And I would love to sit here next year and tell you I was wrong because the price went down late in the year like we've seen with gas, or it got warmer.
Yeah, well, the price going up now
It's not going up.
because of supply. And come the summer months, the supply isn't an issue anymore.
That's why-
Yeah, but I don't need to heat the building in the summer.
Right.
That's when you fill the tank, right?
Exactly.
bargain.
That's
$2 a gallon.
Got it?
That's how I do.
That's when I
do
fill
mine.
my tank, right, in the middle of the summer.
In 2013, you spent $6,200.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep, and we have just about spent that already this year, so, and we should probably heat the building for the next.
I think anybody that heats with propane will attest to the fact that, I mean, it's gone up there.
Yeah.
So then down to gasoline, 635. Gas has gone down.
Yeah, way out of line, Jason.
Okay, 2 months ago,
I know, no.
2 months ago, and do you really think that this current price is sustainable? And if you're gonna base this current budget on the thinking that the dramatic drop we've seen in the past month is sustainable for a year,
I just,
then
Actually, hasn't
that's
gone down-
great.
Hasn't gone down far enough yet.
When we looked at these numbers, this is where the market was a couple months ago. And, if you remember sort of the beginning of September, our state economy was going to collapse because of gas prices. So, and we have this dilemma every year. None of us have a crystal ball.
Yep.
Again, the town, though, doesn't pay the state tax,
Right.
which
Correct.
is,
Um,
is it 21?
Yeah, I mean,
Right
right,
now, due to the legislature last year, it's 21.4.
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay.
I mean, we're gonna overspend 56 this year. We've spent 49,219 to date. So, we should,
Now, is part of that the schools?
very little of that is, and we do get that, we do get that reimbursed back to us.
What do you think a reasonable number is?
56.4?
I haven't even looked at it. All I know is that
You said it was way out of line, so you
What?
must have an idea.
way out of line, where am I at? $3.39 a gallon. Okay? What are we paying right now?
309?
Great.
$2.99.
Less 24 cents, 21 cents, which is a state tax.
What were you paying 2 months ago?
You realize what's happened with the oil supply and what's going on, and
Yeah.
why the price has come down?
Yeah, I also realize how volatile it is, and tomorrow it can be different. I mean,
Yeah, if the Saudis
Bill,
stop-
one thing you run about, you always talk about past history. I always look at a 3-year history
Yeah.
window. Look at 3 years of history of gas prices. Fuel prices alone,
Yeah. World's changed, okay?
3-year average.
Seriously.
Whatever the committee wants to do. Looks high to me.
Well, we do typically look at averages.
You're projecting the same number of gallons, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't bicker about the dollar.
Unless we get a Prius.
With the solar fire truck, we'll be okay.
Now you're trying to save money twice. You use the solar fire truck on diesel, so.
All right, any other questions on government buildings?
Yeah, I had a quick question on the generator, diesel fuel. That's the run emergency generator. so,
Yeah.
Tank must be full now, we haven't put any money in it this year?
Nope, it's not full.
Pardon?
It's not full, it's half tank.
So it's full last year, at the start of the year?
Yep.
Before the end of the year.
Yep.
And you're gonna fill it up the end of the year?
The end of this year, I'll fill it up.
Yep.
But no. We don't, may I explain the reason why we don't keep it full? It's not good for it, okay? Try to bring it down, let it run, okay? It runs every week. So I try to run it to about a half a tank or less. If we get a power outage for 4 or 5 days, I'm gonna go through a tank or two, okay? So that's what I do. I don't like to keep it full. It's not good for it, and plus condensates and stuff like that. I like to run it. I stir it up. That's what they have told me from Southwest Wilton has kept me, bring it down to this and then fill it, it's better for it.
636, Andrew, how much did they spend last year?
636 generator diesel fuel. They spent
Had a good winter.
I'm sorry?
zero.
Huh?
Zero.
You would have spent zero.
Last year and zero this year?
And you would have spent zero probably the year before as well?
312.
Must have been-
Is your supposition that we don't need any fuel?
No, I know you do, Frank, I'm just,
Yeah. Oh,
I hear what Kevin said, I believe him, but
the years that if it doesn't get charged, it means that we had an eligible FEMA reimbursement come back in that year because FEMA will pay us for generator usage. You can recall, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and so the timing issue, I'm going to charge that first because they pay me for that.
Yeah.
So if there's a year you don't see a charge, it's because the timing, I'm going to hit that first.
Or did we
Before-
buy it at the end of 13?
What?
Or did we buy fuel and load it at the end of 13?
No, if whatever we bought in 13 hit a FEMA reimbursement that I had open, I had the cash on the books, so
makes sense.
that's,
So is it safe to say, unless there's a major outage or a major situation, you use about 50 gallons a year?
If we have nothing going on, no, I will not say that, because we're fed from dairy. All it takes is a bird, and the power goes out on that line, okay, at least 2 or 3 times on a beautiful sunny day, okay, and it's run this year. I think I filled it up in the spring. I had it up, and we run it, where it's been out for 10 hours or something because of the bird in the line, dairy. We're fed on the worst feeder there is, the town hall, okay? And that, you guys know.
I'm right
okay?
across the street. That's why I went and bought a generator.
Yeah, everybody bought generators east of us, trust me.
Everybody.
So I will say that. I will not say it's 50 gallons. I will not say that. I'm sorry, Chris, I can't. Unless we move some trees to get the birds away from the wire and reach.
Because what I was thinking is if, then obviously if something major happens and it's out for 3 days, that's a FEMA event, most
Not
likely
always.
will be covered.
not always.
Not
always.
always,
No.
not always.
No, and unfortunately, it's handy when that does happen, but these late in the year storms, there's a time lag. Town's reimbursed, but it doesn't
And the
pay
op-
attention to our budget year.
And the operative word is reimburse, which means the town has to pay for it to get reimbursed.
So we circle it down.
Yeah.
Well, it sounded like you said that you filled up the tank, you filled up the generator this year.
Phil, John,
How come there's no expenses against it?
was it before this year or was it?
Probably
I can't remember.
I'm assuming you did it last year. I can undertake the investigation for the missing 100 hours.
That's why I
You don't
said
need to.
average 50 gallons. That's why I brought that up, because you said it filled and then you run it down to half. That's the only reason why I
I
said
apologize.
it's an average 50 a year.
The years have gone by faster than I expected.
The older you get, the quicker it does. I know. I feel it.
No additional research on my side, Mr. Hoke.
right, any other questions on general government building? All right, what next?
Code enforcement, 4241.2.
I'm sorry,
Is there a method to your madness for
Yeah.
skipping around the?
Those that involve Kevin.
Got it.
I'm here.
Really, the only notable change here is a reduction in the plan for temporary inspector services when Kevin is unavailable.
Any questions on this account?
First guy, he was over 100 bucks.
Give me 1 second. Oh, good.
All right, if there's nothing,
4411.1.
which one's that?
That's health,
Health.
and that is unchanged.
looks like that remains unchanged. Any questions? Hearing none? Where are we jumping to next?
We can go back and go in order now, so.
What did you do this year? Give me more the Valley Street LLC people. I love them.
No.
Good hard workers.
They are, a good bunch of boys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a
All
good night.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Planning board?
Planning board.
Well,
Oh, hold on.
do we want to do revenues, or do you want to contingent the review? We'll hit revenues at the end of the review?
Yep.
Yeah,
All right,
if that's okay with the committee.
planning board.
Planning board, basically unchanged, slight decrease related to benefits.
Will you explain again the NRPC planner, what she does?
She is the trained professional planner that provides the technical assistance to the planning board for review of plans from an ordinance point of view and a subdivision reg point of view, is also the person that works with the board on planning, like big picture planning issues, and also ordinance writing.
So $70 an hour is both, we're paying her while she's at the meetings and when she's doing work for us back at her office.
When she, yeah, we'll do for both, outside of specific plan review where that project is charged for specific review. You know, the development plan comes in, part of the escrow funds they provide covers planning review time, technical planning review time, and engineering time. So we, the town, do not pay for specific plan review. We pay for kind of the big picture.
And does she need to be at every meeting, or can she just get what went on in the minutes and say, look, we really didn't need you for the 2 hours of the 3-hour meeting, so we need you for an hour, we'll send it to you. I'm just
There's
wondering.
a plan in front of the planning board. She needs to be there. She's the individual who's climbed through the plans and the minute details necessary to ensure that it meets Litchfield's zoning ordinances. If there are other things going on, if there's a discussion in terms of how the planning board wants to modify a zoning ordinance, then she needs to be there to be able to understand that and to be able to document what the planning board wants and make the changes to the document to reflect the planning board's desires. If there's nothing going on, there's nothing going on.
She does, well, with nothing going on, then you're saying if there's nothing going on, there'd be no meeting at all? Or if there's nothing going on, that the appointed members can handle it and she doesn't need to be there, is what I'm trying to
There's
understand.
probably one meeting a year where she may not be there because the planning board does it itself, but that's few and far between.
Yeah, there's little in the planning board sort of realm of responsibilities that wouldn't hit one of those things that Frank just touched on, so.
What have you spent year to date?
We've spent $11,411, and that's because year-to-date, in terms of their billing, bills me through August. So I'm lagged a few months from there. And what we, because of the nature of sort of the ordinance drafting and the like, the November, December, January, February months run higher than the summer months do. So I would expect that we'll be seeing another 2, 4, 6. We should be seeing $6,000 to $7,000 more coming through that line, based on
Right,
past history.
Let's put you at the $18,000 mark.
Yeah.
Right, which is the same expense that you've had for the last 2 years as well.
I will also tell you that at the end of the year, if you're talking about the NRPC planner line, that'll
Yes.
go up because she will be preparing, starting already, any zoning ordinances that the planning board's going to propose to the voters for the next, for the March cycle. So that's a very high peak time of the year where the planner needs to put effort into the zoning ordinances.
Is that the case every year?
That's the case every year.
Pretty much
Yeah,
every year.
Pretty much.
So there's no change year over year.
No, I'm just saying that Jason said he's lagged to August with the billing, and I'm also saying that there'll probably be additional time that'll go into it, starting relatively soon, to go and hit the March town meeting.
So Andrew, to your point, what is you thinking? It's slightly high?
Yeah, you know, 15.6, 15.2, I think it's $1,000 high, approximately.
Recording fees generally paid by applicant, so why did $50 get stuck in this year?
'Cause from time to time, they do have fees there, and I put $50 back because we had $50 in prior years there. I dropped it in the default recalculation. I shouldn't have put it there because it will draw attention, and the answer on it is, I don't have a great answer at that $50. I'll be completely honest.
I was just curious,
you
it
know?
says it's something that's paid by the applicant, and so then
But,
why?
yeah, from time to time, they have items that end up being filed and recorded.
You just want to give us a gimme.
Recording fees are used in that case because when a contractor takes their property and subdivides it, some of the subdivision at times will end up in a situation where it will actually be given to the town. Usually it's probably the prime land, such as swamp land and all of that stuff. But some of that may be recorded through the planning board that way.
Andrew, we spent money on that account?
I'm sorry, which one is it?
$329, recording fees.
Zero.
I just took my filter off, just as you asked that question. Yeah, nothing, 329.0.
Yeah, it started out in the budget, and it started through the default. It had carried over in some like 12 or 13, it had been a $50 line, so when I built this, it got carried over.
Have we ever spent money in the line?
Yes, the answer to your question is
Yep.
yes, $16.45.
How much?
$16 in 2012. 11.0, 10.0, 9.0, 8.0.
Okay.
There aren't that many subdivisions coming.
How does that average out?
About $10.
Less
Not
than. Yeah.
Inflation.
$2. So then is that similar, when you go to postage then, is it a similar situation there then?
Postage is paid for by the applicant, so what happens is if an applicant comes in to do a subdivision, we have to notify the abutters, and that notification is sent by the applicant, and that's part of their fees that they have to pay to the planning board.
However,
However, go ahead.
Yeah, however, if a plan is if an approval is being revoked, if there's a rehearing that requires noticing, the planning board eats the cost of those fees.
Okay.
There's a new law on the books this year that for a change to the zoning ordinance affects certain groups of landowners, there is an obligation to notify each of those landowners individually. There's a certain threshold of if it hits a lot of people, you don't have to do it, but if it hits, I think it's like under 100, you have to send them out.
Right.
So that's that's how that would be used, so it's
All right,
variable.
And looking at the previous one, we spent $3 as of September 30th. I don't keep up to date.
Yeah.
So is 150 really?
$6.11 in
Okay.
13, $90 in 2012, $102 in 2011, $980 in 2010.
980?
Yep.
Yep.
Wow. Was that?
There was a reason for that. Had to be.
Yeah, there was actually. No, and I can,
It's all over the board, to answer your question.
I'm pretty sure, because that was before, I didn't build that number or where those things were going that year. My guess is that was one of the first years the town was aggressively returning impact fees. And I'm pretty sure the postage charges went to the planning budget instead of the accounting
Throw
budget.
that year out.
So, but if you'd like to average it over 40,
2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5.
Okay.
yeah.
Here, yeah.
All right, any other questions on the planning board budget? All right, moving on then. Zoning, 4191.3.
Unchanged.
Any questions?
Yeah, just wondering about the seminars. Like, does that actually money get spent?
I think it has been, although I'm not sure it's been spent the past 2 years.
Would that typically be for new members, or?
It's sometimes for new, and in this case, it's often ongoing members too, for sort of continuing ed or the latest twist of where the Supreme Court may have moved or allowed variances to go.
Your average over 5 years is $115. It has been spent
Yeah.
almost every year.
Yeah, and in my opinion, people should be encouraged to go to these, especially like you said, if it's about changing laws and changing requirements.
You could set it to $100 though, and it'd be comfortable.
Any other questions about the zoning board? All right, moving down then to cemeteries, 4195.
This has been kept unchanged this year.
So an interesting discussion came up yesterday about cemeteries where some money is set aside for perpetual care so that the gravestone, gravesite is taken care of beyond the, the initial interment. What's the percentage that covers, and how does that happen?
It covers very little when, in old account, there's somebody paid $100 for perpetual care and we're getting 1% interest on it. It's not throwing off a lot of money for us to put toward groundskeeping.
I'm just wondering, and I know we have a lot of old grave sites, but I was just curious, what is the percentage that do have perpetual care, and what does that generate? And I never really thought about it before, except that I was in New Orleans and they have perpetual care on the cemeteries. Made me wonder.
Let me see if I can pull one on the fly. Well, if not, I'll let you know next time.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the percentage is and how much that generates.
Who does the groundskeeping there?
This year, it's Dalmatian Landscaping.
And this is one of those weird things where by law, the town is required to keep up their cemeteries. I forget, it was you that mentioned it once to me, Frank, that cemeteries is one of the weird things that...
You have to have a place to bury the people that live in town, yeah.
Oh, that's what it was, okay.
That gets awful messy if you don't.
Okay.
Do we have a lot of available space in our cemeteries?
Are you looking for a plot?
I just turned 50.
It's funny, we saw the whole site map there yesterday.
Yeah, ironically, we just had the maps out yesterday, so.
There is space, there's a whole section of one cemetery that has not been developed.
And a plot costs how much?
I'm not ready for a down
I
payment
think
yet, I
the-
was just
I think the
curious.
cost is still $100.
They're pretty
isn't it? Or
cheap.
did they change it?
I don't think it's gone up yet. It's still,
Buy now.
Sell it later.
A one-time sale,
I want to be
everybody.
buried under
Buy all of
soccer
them?
ribbon, so.
a lot of activity there, so.
Real estate development.
I don't want any neighbors.
The only thing in terms of the cemeteries that is under state law is a requirement to fence it in.
Okay.
I thought that changed.
Not that I'm aware of.
I think that one had changed. It was 4 or so years ago, they made that a rule, and then it had changed. But it would be nice to learn that, because the town and the budget committee talked about, we have to get a fence. And there wasn't enough money in the budget to do it. And then the next year, the law changed.
Well, it's not like they're trying to get out.
Well, but no, but I remember that. I think that law changed. It's not that anymore.
So more of a, are you still looking up something, Jason?
I am, because if I can give you one quick answer to your question, looking at 2013, the Pinecrest Perpetual Care generated $62.95 in income, and the Hillcrest funds generated $19.17 in income.
Doesn't go very far.
Hence our dilemma. So
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
The past few years I've been a part of this committee, we've had discussions about groundskeeping, right? What's the right dollar amount? You know, I don't think there's any debate about whether or not it needs to be provided. It's just trying to figure out and set what that number is, right? I don't see you spending $7,600 for groundskeeping, right? I don't. I see it more like $6,500, $6,000.
Okay, I see us spending 7,600 and potentially more than that. Last bill I have was from the beginning of September. We also have not done any tree removal work yet.
Okay, so
I'm expecting we'll spend, if everything that I've spoken to the trustees about happens, we will spend the 7,600, if not more.
So what's changed between now and 12 and 13?
What's changed? In what way?
Why is there a significant increase?
We have changed vendors for groundskeeping over the past several years. We've tried to do more tree work. We've picked up some added cost for fall and spring cleanup, where we used to be able to completely rely on the prison community service program. That program went away. We started bringing some of it back when it came back into the budget, but, we didn't get spring in there because we cut back to one planned week this year for that, and we were too late to get spring cleanup. So those are some of the things that are factoring into it.
So you spent 4,000 to date, maybe just over. My numbers are some. So
We've spent $5,272 to date,
that's an expense, 5,002.
7-2.
272.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on cemeteries? All right, moving on to ambulance 4215.1.
This is unchanged.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Fire hydrants 4220.9.
Yes, this represents sort of an interesting dilemma that we have in terms of timing. The budget the selectmen approved was based on our best information at the time of $299,325. If you look at my notes on the other side, following the selectmen's initial approval of this budget, we received better information that our monthly rate would be $24,609 a month after all of the dust has settled from the new rate setting.
So what was the new?
It's the little note that it says after, it says actual 295,308.
Yep. And what is it gonna be?
That's what our expectation is, that
Oh,
will be,
okay.
the 295,308.
Okay.
So we can make a
Why am I seeing
$4,000
that?
adjustment.
What?
Right here.
It's in the comments.
Yeah, yes, I put it in the comments. Again, we sort of had this timing issue. The selectmen did talk about on Monday that they recognized that we got these new numbers in.
Okay.
Any questions on fire hydrants? All right, moving to emergency management, 4290.1.
Notable item here is, for the past several years, we've been paying half of the cost of the Code Red service when we have, with funds we had available to us at year end. This budget reflects the full cost, the full annual cost of that service.
Any questions?
I'm not sure I fully understand what you just said.
What we were doing was we were taking funds from, let's use 2014 as an example. We would take year-end funds that were unspent of 2013 and pay half of the Code Red service for 2014. And then the other half would be budgeted for 2014. So half the fund, half the cost would be paid in 13. The final half would be paid in 14.
So why can't you keep doing that?
The Budget Committee declined to allow us to go back in and do that.
Why wouldn't you want to?
We do, but the Budget Committee said they won't open up the budget, so
When did
we
we
have to
say
put the
that?
full cost, we have to
When did we
put the
say
full
that?
cost in.
That's why we're not voting the bottom line until December or January, so that any adjustments can be made.
The Budget Committee clearly stated that they did not want to open up the budgets to bring back in, as we did at the year end, any adjustments.
Yes, that was my opinion, not speaking on behalf of the committee. I will not be in favor of reopening budgets after they're already approved and voted, bottom line.
So we have budgeted the full amount.
Yeah, what you're saying is you were paying half years out of the last year's budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any
'cause-
unexpended funds, they were using at the end of the year to pay a little bit ahead.
Yeah, and it's just been a practice we fell into. We think we started doing this when we started this program in 2011, and we just have kind of stayed with it to each year, rather than carry the full cost in the budget.
So technically, you were paying a full year in each budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just not
It's no
planning-
change.
Right, just not planning for it.
Except you didn't appropriate it.
Of course, it's appropriated. We can't spend the money if it's not
No,
appropriated.
you had bottom line number money to spend on it, but that particular line item was not appropriated in that bottom line number, because,
It didn't show a full appropriation. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
And so now you'll increase the appropriation by 2,000, whatever the number is.
Now, again, the Code Red system is what?
That's the emergency notification system we have that will send out the phone call, the text, the email in case of emergency, for emergency notification, or more targeted thing like a road closure in a neighborhood or that sort of thing.
And people have to sign up for it.
People can sign up for to ensure that they get the calls on various devices in the forms they want. I do have the emergency database that is all of the publicly registered numbers for people. So when we send out an emergency all-call, it hits those numbers.
You mean whatever you have on file from any other record, driver, the motor vehicle?
Yeah,
record?
if you have a publicly listed number somewhere, part of the service goes out and, like any other sort of national phone bank type system, it goes out and pulls all of those numbers. We have that database available to us that is, and they kind of scrub that database. The best database to have if you live in town is to go onto our website, sign up with your own information, so you know it's coming to your cell phone, your email. You can request a text if you want text, email, traditional phone, whatever it is.
Now, how many, about per year, how many code red alerts go out? Are we talking hundreds or thousands or 10?
Probably, we probably use it, I want to say 6 to 10 times a year, but we use it sometimes in very targeted ways. If a street's going to be closed for a certain area, we can go in and just pull people on that street. I don't have to tell the whole town that Cranberry is closed for the day due to flooding. I can just call Mr. Spencer.
Bill know.
Yeah, exactly.
My street.
That's right, you don't flood anymore now that we've.
Somehow I
yeah.
got on the Manchester one, and I get those texts sometimes 3 times a day.
Oh,
3
yeah,
days a week.
we're not that service. We use it judiciously. We're not the boy who cried wolf. I'm familiar with the Manchester service. I was subscribed for a while. I knew every time there was a parade or a road race.
Are you able to tell me how to get off?
Yes.
Because I don't know how I got on it.
For a small fee. No, and the other thing we use it for, we can upload our own phone data sets in there. So if you have failed to register your dog on time, the town clerk can upload the database of unregistered dogs, and the call goes out automatically.
Yes, I was guilty of that last year.
And for us, that's the best test the system works. 2 years ago, first time we did it, town clerk sent out the calls. The third party that hosts the dog registration site online, we crashed their site because so many people got the phone call, responded, and followed through on it.
Because I'm wondering if there is a way that you could get better use of it with no additional cost to it, because right now, what is it, $800 a call that
Yep.
goes out, so, I mean, the calls, if they're real emergency, it's.
It is. I mean, there are probably more informational things that we can do with it, and it's that fine line of we also don't want to be the town that cried wolf. Here's another notice from the town telling me that, the sky is blue. So that's kind of what I struggle with sometimes, is I don't want overkill. But you are right that there's probably a little space between our conservative use and.
And Manchester's use.
Right. There's a lot of space between that.
All right.
Line 740, what equipment do we worry about here?
We would be looking at probably some radios, some safety equipment. I have nothing specifically earmarked for it.
Does it go on the trucks, or where's the equipment?
It would go it could go in trucks, could go in the Emergency Operations Center.
Don't they already have that stuff?
I'll give you an example. When we set up a shelter one time, I had to be equipped with a radio in case something happened at the shelter so that we could get a hold of EMS,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
Don't we have those, though?
In some cases, we do. Again, if there are items we don't have or items that fail. I mean, part of it's a placeholder, and I will freely admit it's placeholder. I don't have a list of items. Zero is one heck of a placeholder. It doesn't buy you very much. So that's what we're operating on now. So, so far, we have not had a major demand over the past year on the full, emergency operation services.
Have we spent any money on that, Andrew?
Well, they zeroed it out because it was a default year. We proposed $500. It looks like that was zeroed out.
Have they spent anything on it?
Well, no, because there's no budget.
Prior years, I think we have.
In prior years, they absolutely have, yeah.
What have they spent in prior year?
In 13, they spent $760, and 12, $1,600, and 11, $200.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's what during those FEMA storms, and
You-
that's when we were using those.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, what happens is you learn in one of those events, oh, I need X, and you go get that for the next one, so.
Okay. Any other questions on emergency management? All right, moving on to conservation, 4611.2.
This reflects a slight change from our adjusted budget, just to cover some additional costs at the fishing derby. after town meeting this year, we moved a few of the items of the Conservation Commission out to the Conservation Fund, based on the voters' approval.
So,
Would you say that again, Jason?
We moved a few of the property maintenance.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, we moved those out to the fund. One of the articles that the voters approved this year at town meeting was expanding the use
Right.
of that conservation fund.
The thought being the milfoil kind of.
Right, exactly. And so the
Nothing-
milfoil came out of there, and we moved the property management type items into being paid out of that conservation fund instead of the general fund.
Why would we do that?
What?
Why would we do that?
Why would we do that?
Yeah.
Because property management was clearly an eligible expense.
I know that, but that fund was really set up, honestly, to purchase property.
And that's what we took back and asked the voters this year to clarify.
No, I
Are
understand,
you
I
wi-
understand,
right.
I understand that whole process.
Yeah, and
We
that
were
was-
part of it, but I don't think, at least from my point of view, I never envisioned, even when I voted for that article, that all of their operating expenses would wind up going into being paid out of that fund. I expected that would be there for unusual expenses like the milfoil, which is a major expense, and to purchase land. I mean, that money is gonna go eventually, unless it gets
Move it back
replaced.
into the budget? Yeah. Go for it.
What's the Conservation Commission thoughts on that?
Mixed. I think we sort of went back and forth on this because we argued, and I had discussions about the entirety going. We have also had a conversation that depending on how you read the law that sets up the fund, there are those that would argue the entirety of the Conservation Commission's spending as itemized is eligible for that fund. And so I looked at a narrower view of it. And I think ultimately, in their mind, the less they have to use that fund, the more it's available when property comes up. And they purchased property this year. So the feelings are kind of all over the map. And you could, you might well have, if we had a sampling of the Conservation Commission here, they may very well tell you that they would prefer to have the $750 back in this budget.
Yeah, I know my father would.
Yeah.
It's small money that we're talking about. It's more the principle of thing than anything else that would concern me. And I just, personally, I would not want to use that fund for running the Conservation Commission. So I just wouldn't want to do that, because it's just too important to me to have that money available to buy land when it comes up. But it's really up to the selectmen how you want to proceed with it, in terms of how you choose to do that.
any other comments or questions on conservation? All right, that ends the review for tonight. Can we go and look at revenues now?
And I'm sorry, Bill. We have revenues, and
Send me an email.
that's fine. I mean, and I honestly did. I posted them, and I'll be honest. It didn't occur to me that we were actually going to go through them in detail tonight. So I apologize for. I'll be a little bit flimsy on this. The basic answer is that the revenues that we looked at last year around this time, this is our best guess projection. We then reset the revenues, and what you see, the middle column, the 2014 revised on MS4, those are the numbers that go into our tax rate setting. So those are more realistic. That's when I reproject again in September. What I'm showing here, is a pickup of about $9,000 over what we had guessed, and that was with a lot of moving parts this year. And next year, what the selectmen have approved right now, and based on our best information on Monday, was a very slight decrease, so pretty much flat from where we were now, the decrease of $54. So for all intents and purposes, flat. I said as of Monday because we will need to revisit this. Tuesday, Department of Revenue told me we had a substantial increase for the first time in rooms and meals revenue by about $35,000, which I had given up seeing that ever go up again, so I didn't plan on it. So, so that may go in, so that went into our tax rate setting this year, and will go, so I would expect that we'd want to count for that. That's, a nice little jump of money. So the highlights here really are, we have good news about, we have interesting news in two ways. Interest and penalties on delinquent taxes continues to fall. So the bad news for us is that's less revenue. The good news is for our residents, taxes, people aren't struggling paying their tax bill. That's good news. That's a good data indicator. The second good indicator we have is those motor vehicle permits and fees. We have reversed the trend of downward spiraling and flat vehicle registrations. Those numbers are up and continue to go up. So we're going to project an increase there, projecting about $20,000 more there next year. The other changes are largely incremental. The income from departments, from the MS-14 to our projection, there's hardly any change. If you look at where we thought we would be this time last year to that time, you notice there's a big drop. If you go back to recall last week when we talked about solid waste facility and we talked about some of the different ways that we were handling the wood debris and some of the other things we pulled out of Dave's budget and said they're coming out of our accrued revenues from sale of products, this is where you see that impact on the sheet here, through that change in revenue. Also, under the other miscellaneous revenues, there's an item, insurance claim proceeds. That's where our biggest drop is. The past several years, we've been getting these returns of surplus as the health trust program has been unraveled and been dealing with various orders to pay money. We're no longer getting those back. The biggest chunks are already passed, for one. And two, as of October, we are no longer members of Health Trust for health insurance. So we will still get we'll still get little bits back for our participation in the dental program, but we're not going to be seeing $17,000 a year.
So I have a question, mostly out of curiosity. Hunting and fishing licenses. You can get a fishing license online. Does the town automatically get funds from that if you're a Litchfield resident? Or only if you go to town hall and get your fishing license does Litchfield get the funds from that?
I'll ask Terry.
And
Because whatever I answer, I'm sure will be wrong. Because there are some we get an agency fee for
Yeah.
regardless, and others we don't. I'll ask her. I don't know.
And I was curious too, like boating fees, a lot of times you can go to a marina and get a license there, same thing, versus,
Those we get.
Those we get.
They are, when you go to Irwin is our agent. We actually have an agreement with them to do boat registrations.
okay, so any marina or just Irwin?
Only that's located in our town. If you go to Winnipesaukee
Uh-huh,
and register your boat through the marina at the Winnipesaukee, the town that
gets that.
facility's in gets that.
Okay,
Yep.
interesting.
So if somebody lives in Hudson and registers at Irwin, we get it?
Yes,
Because they're,
we have the agreement with them.
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Jason, would you feel comfortable giving us an estimate or a guesstimate of property valuation for next year?
I will next week.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Kevin and I have started talking about it, but we just have to fine tune the number, so.
Okay. Has the Litchfield tax rate been set?
Yes.
Is it public knowledge?
Yeah, in fact, it was given to you guys, so.
Really?
Really?
Please.
See it.
Yeah, it went up late today. I put it up.
Yeah, I did see.
So it's $20.70.
Say again?
$20.70 when we had been at $20.57,
Okay. It was up 3 cents?
13 cents.
Oh, the PDF file?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was just posted 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
So right when we started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was posted at the end of the day today, so,
Town go down?
no. No.
School
School went down 10 cents, town went up 20 cents, county went up 3 cents. Add those up, there's your 13 cents.
NHFS 13 final PDF, is that it?
Nope. There should be one that says 2014 tax rate?
Yep.
Okay, it exists because I can see it on Andrew's computer,
Yeah,
so
it's on.
it is there, okay.
There it is. I just need
Yeah.
to refresh.
Okay.
All right, then we are then ready to move on to budget voting for the accounts we looked at last week. The first one listed is 4130.1, the executive account.
That's the town administrator? Right.
Yeah, it's listed as Board of Selectmen.
I found it first.
Well, any discussion, any motions?
Well, doesn't the selectman rep have the motion
Well,
for the budget, or no?
don't know,
No.
since we're not going
Because we're
bottom
not.
line voting.
That's right, because we're not voting the
We're
bottom
not
line.
voting the bottom line until December, January.
So, you know, that's a good point. Let me just ask a question now about procedure. Because if any changes are made, right, in
Mhm.
lines,
Mhm.
the selectmen, they are still going to make a motion in December for the original, on any budget.
The reason we did this is now, we can make our changes, recommendations, reductions, whatever we want to. They have the opportunity, what they did last year is after we went through our voting, they went back and said, you know what, we agree, let's cut it here, we don't agree, we got some new numbers.
I see.
They brought new numbers back. So this way, they can either in December go, you know what, the budget committee made a $6,000 reduction, yeah, let's go with it, or no, we still think that $6,000 should stand, so they'll make a bottom line recommendation for whatever changes they may have made in the meantime.
You're absolutely right, and I just thought of something, right. When we started the process, they did it, and then it was the budget committee's budget to make changes, right. In this case now, if any changes are made in any budget, then a budget committee member will then make a motion to the bottom line at that time in December. Okay. Just took me a second to get there, but I got there.
So if anybody has anything they want to increase or decrease, this is your time to make the motion and do that.
I'll make a motion, line 130, salary selectmen, change that to 0.
A motion has been made to reduce selectmen's salaries to 0. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been made and seconded. Discussion?
I think I spoke to that in detail last time, and you know, something extra this year, and I want to ask this committee a question. I mean, this meeting, what I just heard, you know, we're putting on warrant breathing air for fire departments and thermal imaging cameras to see houses that are burning down and, you know, potentially people inside, which, by the way, I think are very necessary, needed expenses that this town does need to have to continue to operate. So going back to my thought about when I look at all of these budgets and zero-based and, you know, try and justify it a few different ways. Selectmen do work real hard. They volunteer their time. They put a lot of hours in. As they said, it probably comes out to 14 cents an hour, but I also know nobody's doing it for the money. And there's always plenty of people that want the job. And I know none of the selectmen are going to walk off the job if they're not getting paid because they are not doing it for the money. And when I recommend or go to the voters with my recommendations this year, I want to be absolutely sure I could assure them that everything in there I truly believe that is absolutely necessary to run this town. On a side note, that's not my responsibility, is that can go on a warrant, and if that's the case, as far as I'm concerned, it'll be a closed case. once the voters speak individually. So that's my justification for it.
Bill?
Just a question, do you feel the same way about the school board?
We could discuss
We're
that
not
when we
here
get
to
to the
discuss the
budget.
school
I
board.
mean, we're not there
I'm
yet.
asking him a personal question.
I'd love to discuss that when we get there.
Do you feel the same way about it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do. I absolutely do feel, but you know what, we're prepared to have that discussion when we
Yeah,
get
no,
there. But I
I want
truly
to
believe.
make sure you're consistent, that's all.
So, Mr. Pascucci,
Yes.
if you're going to answer first with the questions, do you feel that way about the road agent?
Okay, here we go. Here we
It's
go.
a yes or no question, sir.
The road agent is not an elected official anymore.
Do
You guys
feel that way about the library-
appointed Jack
Do you feel that way
Sincero
about the
the other
library
day.
trustees or the cemetery trustees?
And actually, no, I don't, and I'll tell you
Do you feel
why.
that way about the town clerk tax collector?
Let him finish.
Could I finish?
He answered my question. He said, no, he didn't.
I tell you why. To me, and feel free to disagree with me all you want. Like I says, I'm not here to get into a fight.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
It's I feel a real difference with the governing positions is where, in my mind, I draw the line. It's a very important, all the governing positions, they're important, they're powerful, they're influential. A lot of people want the job. A lot of people want the job. There's always a line of people getting on, and then the current guys or girls that are on fight to retain the job. So there's something good about it, and it's clearly stated it's never about the money. So it's not only one factor, it's a lot in it, and also the fact that we have default budgets. And it's also the fact, and none of this is the main reason, that was the first thing that you guys took out when the budget failed last year. And it's also that the voters do like to see, in my opinion, and from what I hear, things on the ballot. They like choices. I'm all for putting it on. I'm not saying you guys don't deserve a salary. I'm saying it's time to ask. When we were told last time, the voters already said yes. Well, I don't know that for a fact, and if they did, it was many, many, many years ago. In my opinion, let's re-ask. Again, another factor I'm saying is we're putting thermal imaging cameras and air packs, breathing air for our firemen, on a warrant. And we're just going to put a salary for selectmen in the budget? I just see a problem with that.
Do you feel that way about the moderator?
Moderator, let's see, elected, and what do they get? They get a salary?
$200.
Is there a point to your questions?
Yeah, is there a point? I don't know. Give me a sec, give me a second to think about the
Does there have to be a
moderator.
point to my questions?
No,
I'm asking to understand where he's coming from, the same as Mr. Spencer was granted that ability.
It's okay if he doesn't have a point to the question. I'm fine with it. I was prepared to talk about the school board when I got there. It's not like I'm trying to duck the situation.
Yeah, don't get into that.
But to me, it's the governing bodies, and you know, when I see, again, it goes back, you know, I would have a different opinion, quite honestly. I mean, anything would change my opinion. For example, if this was 2004 and everybody was happy and didn't know what to do with all the money they had, it would be a different story. But remember, we got turned down twice with the budget, and then also, these other positions, they always run unopposed. So I guess I might have a different position if it came time to election day and the selectman line, it just said write-in because there's nobody putting their name in. So that's my opinion.
If I could, just a couple things.
Yeah.
We're putting needed stuff on warrant articles, we're putting breathing tanks, we're putting infrared cameras. That's because we have given that direction. These are easy sell. Take the easy sell large items, put them on warrant articles so people can see them, know where their money's going, and they'll support them. They're given for support. So
Right.
don't say we're putting those needed things on warrant articles and we should put, $6,000 on a warrant article, because they're not the same thing. The other
Well,
thing in
can I
terms-
just expand to that and answer that first? I'm happy going the other way. I'm happy putting the needed things in the budget, and I've been consistent with that for years. I mean, I'm prepared. I mean, I looked at it to put police cruiser, the full purchase price in the budget, and I'll sell it unbelievably. I'll write letters to the editor and sell it. I have a problem with leases, but I'll put it in there as a full price, and I've spoken to that. I've been so consistent with that. So back to the thing. I guess it's a question of, then are you telling me, is the selectman's salary needed?
What I'm saying is, you gave that as an example,
Yeah.
so I'm saying, I don't think that's comparable. The second thing is, you say a lot of people want the job. There have been a number of years where there have been nobody, and it's been a write-in who got 32 votes that took that position. So just because the last year, couple of years,
Yeah, I don't ever recall that.
yeah.
Right then?
Yeah.
I don't ever recall
I
it.
can give
Okay,
you-
we're going way back,
I won't
but-
give you an example in public, but, so the last couple of years, just because there's been,
Okay.
you know, people, more than one person going for position, doesn't mean that's always going to happen.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think they deserve a stipend. I think the school board deserves a stipend. I think the moderator, and they're incremental based on the requirement. I know with selectmen and school board, they're a little bit larger because there are incidental things as part of being in office that you don't get reimbursed for. And so these help mitigate some of that those personal time and personal expenses.
Sacrifice.
Personal expenses, no, they're expenses too. Personal expenses that you don't necessarily get reimbursed for. So I see it as a token compared to what the job they do and the personal expenses they.
That's fine, and I mean, I know, I won't change your mind, you won't change my mind, and that's fine, I'm not here to do that, and if my motion fails, that's fine. Because then you can go, if it's a token, I mean, I know we're on the low end, you look at so many other towns, they're getting much more than thousands of dollars. So, I mean, I guess to be fair, do we then make a motion to raise it to be more in line with the other towns?
You could.
Well, that's my point. So all I'm saying is, I don't say they don't deserve it. Public service is that. It's public service. It's a sacrifice. It's a governing position. If you guys don't want to support my motion, that's fine. I'm okay with it, because it's not worth the fight. But again, I'm going to go through this budget and make sure I stick to my values and present the budget to the voters that I believe is absolutely needed, because that's what they're telling us.
Bill, did you have?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, I fully understand his position, why he wants to do it. I think the whole committee does, so I would like to vote on
Well,
it.
I have a differing reason as to why I'm going to support it. And that's because, yes, perhaps people supported the stipend 10, 15 years ago, but since then, as I said last week, we now have a town administrator. And a lot of the responsibilities that the Board of Selectmen were responsible for have been delegated to this new position. And so I think it's perfectly fair to go to the town voters and ask, okay, you approved the town administrator, do you still want to give a stipend to the Board of Selectmen? So I support it because I think it's perfectly appropriate with the changing in the situation to repoll the voters.
I agree.
You're perfectly appropriate to support the motion.
To
Which is
support the
removal.
motion,
Got it.
to ask the voters, and so I'm supporting.
And I know where you're coming from, because it's not our purview to say what should be asked of the voters, but again, we do have the right to talk about that here, but we can never, ever give direction to the Board of Selectmen.
Absolutely, so, but I think that's the place to do
But,
it. So
but I
I'm supporting
believe
the
that, and you know what, it'll take the issue off the table, and then we could say, hey, the voters said yes directly to it. They value that expense.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to remove $6,000 and make the selectman's salary line item 0, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Aye. Any abstain?
So I haven't been-
All right, so it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so it's 6-2 if motion fails.
I thought you were in
2-6.
favor.
I always do that wrong, 2-6.
I thought you said you were in favor of it.
I said yes.
That's why I asked
Yeah,
the question. She's in favor of the motion of removal.
Yes.
It was,
The,
Oh,
yes.
no,
it was
no,
backward.
It was 2 votes to remove.
Yeah.
2 votes to
Okay, I only
remove.
heard the one.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Any other reductions, additions?
I would make a motion to reduce the town administrator's salary to $90,000.
There's a motion to reduce line item 110, salary town administrator, to $90,000.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. As I stated during the candidates' night, I have an issue with how contracts are treated differently in this town. The union contracts are voted on, they're negotiated, they're voted on. The non-union raises are voted on. Then we have an inconsistent approach by taking contracts with the town administrator, and yes, the superintendent, I'm consistent there, and saying, we'll agree upon it, voters have to pay it without being asked. So to me, I think that, and I can't tell the town how to do it, but I think that to be consistent and fair to the unions and the non-union people who have to have their raises voted on, this also should have been voted on. And then looking through the emails that were sent, there was an agreement that $90,000 was acceptable in July, which is why I chose 90,000. There was a comment last week that we wanted to go to 94,000 because of compression. The police chief makes more currently than the town administrator. So my thought was that if 90,000 was okay in July and was still less than the police chief at that point, the compression issue really, it matters now. Why did it not matter in July? And if the compression is an issue, then we can deal with it differently. Again, I can't tell them how to do it, but how I would have done it would have been to hold the police contract steady and allowing the town administrator to catch up through increases. And the reason I have the biggest issue is this is a 7.4% increase in salary. The COLA for Social Security for 2015 is going to be about 1.7%. This affects raises for people on fixed incomes, militaries, federally retired civilians, and disabled veterans. So we're going to go to these people who get 1.7% raise and tell them we're going to give a town administrator, and please don't take any of this personally, because it's not an attack or concern about anybody's performance or anything else. But I cannot in good conscience tell people who are getting a 1.7% increase that our town administrator is going to get more than 4 times that much, which is why I would support the 90,000, which still brings you up closer. The 3% raise, still more than what a lot of people in town are seeing. I cannot go in good conscience support 7.4%.
Clarifying question. Thank you for that. Because this is a signed, executed contract by our governing body, what flexibility do we have to change this line?
Bottom line budget.
You can vote anything you want. The
Right, but
bottom
you
line
still have to
of it-
honor your contract, right?
That is correct.
Right, so either,
We can.
if it's passed, right, if your motion passes, right, and it's set to 90,000, the governing body still pays 94.
Absolutely, but the money it's a bottom line budget. It would just have to come from somewhere else. I would just not support appropriating the full 94,000.
That's the tough position these boards, because, I'll put in, because it is our budget. And there are things, obviously, we can't, because the thing is, you can't vote policy, you can't vote contract. That's the whole budget. I mean, except for postage, everything's.
75% pretty much, right?
Just about everything's contract, right. So the point is, the selectmen, and they have every right, they could have made that $125,000. But we do have the right to change the bottom line. Because we have to present to the voters a budget that we think is appropriate and manageable based upon their conditions. Now, I had some conversations too, and people are getting 8% raises, they really are. BAE Systems, Cisco, I mean, those high-tech companies, they're getting them. I don't know how in the world but they're getting them.
I know.
Now, I don't know how many people in this town work for Cisco and BAE Systems, but I know people that haven't gotten raises in 2 years, and I know people, even nurses, that got a 2% raise, but then their health plan was changed where they had to pay an additional 3%. So they wound up in the negative. So, look, this one's going to fail also, for the most part.
understand that, but
But
I
the point
can
is, I
understand-
appreciate the conversation, because this is what we should be having.
Any other comments or questions?
Just to ensure that there's fairness in terms of what's being presented here, I will say that Mr. Hope has passed up several opportunities for raises along the way, and that the raise that Mr. Hope has received is felt to be fair and comparable to other communities, as well as the needs and requirements to do the job that he has. It also is in line with making sure that the structure that the Board of Selectmen wish to maintain in the town is maintained, that the salary of the administrator would be higher than the chief.
That's fine, but like I said, my reasoning is I cannot tell my neighbors who are struggling 7.4%.
And the contracts were circulated, right?
Contracts were
Yeah.
circulated, yep.
And it's a 1-year contract, so we'll be in this position again next year.
Yep. And
No,
just-
I'm sorry, aren't you going on the pay plan now?
Yeah,
So it'll just be the
it
normal.
would be, it would be movement through the
Right.
pay
So
plan.
now, the new is just normally, it'll just go up.
in any company, there is a hierarchy of people based on their skill set, based on their special knowledge, based on their level of responsibility. So within a company, you're going to have people who get 1.7%, and you're going to have key people that are going to get much greater.
I understand. I understand.
Much greater salary increases. So to take one person's position and try to equate it to unrelated things and say that some people aren't getting a certain percentage of raise and other people are, you've got to look at the specific situation. And I think in this specific situation, the selectmen have done that. So I don't want to compare.
I actually don't think we're comparing apples to oranges. My comparison is what we're providing versus what people can pay. Because there are people in town who are dependent upon the food bank to feed their kids. And that's not hyperbole. I actually know of people in that position. I know that the food bank has seen enough more action that there was critical shortage of supply of needs. So that to me tells me people, despite what the Bureau of Labor Statistics are saying, people in this town are at their ends. I mean, and to be able to tell them that, yes, I'm sorry you're struggling, but I need you to cough up more money. It's not an indictment on anybody here. It's not a slandering towards anybody's work and what they bring to the table. It's just my concern is that the people who live in this town should be able to afford to live in this town, and that's what I'm looking at. That's all.
And I believe the reason why these conversations are very important, as uncomfortable as they are, is because, I mean, Cindy, you compared it to business, and it's fair. I like to compare to business a lot of times. But the owner of the company, he's making the decisions, he's also earning the dollars. Doing everything correctly by the book in the RSA. I mean, it's nothing wrong here. It's a system problem, and we can't correct that here. The system sucks, because the 5 selectmen that are making these decisions about spending money, I mean, they're putting their due diligence in it, and they're doing it, but realistically, they could just come up with any number if they wanted to. It could be 125,000, and they won't, and they're doing the job, because I know, I gotta be careful. There's something going on with the camera?
Like pointed at the floor.
It
Just caught my eye.
It shut off for a second.
Okay. But the system is horrible, and so the voters, I like to expand voter participation and make it more in line, because, look, I don't know those people in BAE and Cisco well. I'm not in that industry. The industry I'm in, and the people I know are the ones for a couple of years haven't been getting raises, and it's admirable that Mr. Hoke has given up his raises voluntarily, but I know people that have been doing that involuntarily. So it's not an indictment on Mr. Hoke either. He does a valuable service to this community.
And just for information, I've lived here for 23 years, and I've been involved in the food pantry for 23 years. And every year at this time, a call goes out for food, because they're run down. And I also know that even in the best of years, there have been a good, 15 to 20 families that receive food on a regular basis. So it's not a problem that we're going to solve, and it's not a problem that's going to go away, and it's not a problem that necessarily depends on whether the economy's good or the economy's bad.
Well, those people deserve the right to be able to afford to live in this town, too. And I represent those people, too.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of changing line 110 salary for the town administrator to $90,000, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Aye. Any abstentions? All right, motion fails 2-6.
Procedural question. We're not going to vote the bottom line on the executive. We're going to wait until December to do that. And then we're going to have a total bottom line to vote in December. Now, if one were to say, I want to reduce the total bottom line by $30,000, do we have to allocate it to the various accounts?
Yes. Because they need to know when the MS, well, it's now what, the 707?
The 737 for the moment,
737.
yes.
They have to know where to put it. So we
Right.
do have to, since
So
it's
we would
our
have to go
budget.
in and say if
If you want to chop $30,000 out.
Drop
You got
$30,000.
to say where you're taking it.
$30,000 out, and so I'm going to come back and say, okay, an executive, I want to take $2,000 out. then we'll have to vote a bottom line to do that. So the way we'll get to, if we want to make an overall reduction, if that were the case, will be on a account-by-account basis in December. And at that point, what we're doing right now is an exercise just thinking about
Practice.
where we might be doing it. So,
Down to.
It is, because, for example, last year at the end of the budgeting cycle, Chris made a motion to reduce the bottom line, and I forget what your number was. But at that point, everybody was like, well, wait a minute, we already agreed on all the other lines. How can we take a blank
Right.
cut? So this year you could, as long as you can attribute it to where you want to reduce it from.
Yeah, in hindsight, yeah, I would have done things differently. I mean, my number would have been the same, but I would have handled it differently. Actually, in real hindsight, my number would have been more, after seeing what the voters did. But to clear up what Bill said, yeah, we don't have to attribute it to 395 in budget 4130. We just need to attribute it to 4130 bottom line. And I didn't do that last year.
Well,
that's correct.
it's gonna
We're
get,
gonna do line?
it's gonna get sticky, especially if you hand out this type of a budget at the deliberative session, because the numbers that you have there won't total up the bottom line. Now, if you're going top-level budget, in other words, you just so executive in the total, that's fine.
Well, that's what we present. Is the-
Yeah.
So it would work.
What we present at deliberative is what goes on the MS, whatever it is, in truth, that's what we're presenting at deliberative.
That's the only way it can work.
Yeah, yeah, and that's on a account-by-account basis.
Because conversely, the selectmen could take another look at their budget and say, you know what, we also, in December, we decided that we have a new figure, and we're like this figure better.
Well, we will be giving you new figures on healthcare, because those numbers will come in the next couple of weeks.
So as far as this budget is concerned, about all I take from it is that some people here might want to reduce it by some amount of money at some point when we go bottom line. Okay.
So why are we going through this?
To get the discussion going for the December meeting, I guess, Frank.
All right, any further reductions, additions to the executive? All right, moving on to 4130.30, town meeting. We'll entertain a motion to reduce, increase.
Hold on. Can only click so fast. I will make a motion to reduce account 740 election supplies from $350 to $100.
From $350 to $100, line 740, election supplies. Is there a second?
Second. I'll wait.
Discussion?
You know, when I am putting forth motions, you know, a lot of my discussion items happen when we review the accounts, right? So if the committee needs to revisit exactly why I'm making this motion, you know, I'll be happy to explain it, but otherwise, I pretty much said everything I need to say last week.
Okay. No further discussion? All those in favor of reducing line 740, election supplies, to $100, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-2. So the new bottom line.
Don't say that!
That's right, that's right. So we're not doing that. That's right. All right, any,
Look at it
I know.
informationally.
Well, what I can do is after we make these cuts, I can circulate the numbers so everyone can see it.
See what the reduction is, just the, okay.
And if you refresh your town-provided one,
How do
you'll
I-
see a column, and you'll see that it's been outlined in
Refresh
a
button.
color of orange, so you can follow along with it.
Ooh, awesome.
Color coded.
All right. Any other reductions, increases? Now, I had highlighted town report, and I don't remember why.
Because Jason cut it because he said he
Can't get
had,
any less.
he had more than enough everybody was happy with the online
Yeah.
versions, and he had more than enough, and they are doing very well. Instead of sending it out to a printer, he's printing it on demand, which is saving extra money.
Right. And so I'm trying to remember if the reason I highlighted is because I thought it could be lower.
Why not just zero it out?
You
No, I
can't
don't think
zero it
I
out.
don't think we should zero it out. Do you have, what is the year-to-date for that? So, which would tell us what we spent this past March?
Sure. I have 637.87.
637.87, okay.
And it should be less because the snazzy little binding comb machine I bought this year, I shouldn't have to buy again next year, so
Fancy.
that's why we backed it off $150.
All right, so then 500 seems reasonable. All right, anybody else? If not, that is the only change for town meeting. Moving on to town clerk, 4140.10. Any changes? I don't hear anything. All right, hearing no changes, we will move to accounting, 4150.10.
I had a question, which I don't think was answered, about the cash we get for the deposits.
Right, you did have a question. Let me just,
Did we get an answer for that one?
so Mr. Byron sent us information on what the law says about
That I got.
cash on hand. And Chris's question was, how many days this year has the town of Litchfield received over $15 in cash money in one day?
And that wasn't answered, and it wasn't answered simply because, under state law, if you read it, it says that there is no stipulation for cash, it's funds received,
I agree.
okay? And we receive more than $1,500 every day, so.
In cash.
In funds.
received.
But the question, I think, of cash was that we could go to a system where you could automatically.
And this is where I want to be real careful,
Whereas
because
cash, you can't scan a dollar bill to your bank.
this is a policy, and I'm not about to change the policy.
But you can.
Their policy is they go to the bank. So, you know,
But you don't
that's
have
their
to-
policy.
You don't
I
have to
mean,
fund 260 trips.
I agree, and that's why I'm asking. So, is it safe to say, I mean, nowadays, everything's credit card and check, and there's probably very little cash on a daily basis?
You would be surprised.
I might be, that's what I'm
yeah,
asking.
we actually get a decent amount of cash. If we were to entertain this, what Terry and I had talked about was the first and last week of the month, you'd have $1,500 of cash every day, just because that's when you have your surge of vehicles.
Okay.
Middle of the month, maybe you wouldn't, maybe twice. The other thing is, 2 months a year, when tax bills are rolling in, you can pretty much count on every day. We have people that pay their tax bills in cash. So you've got a lot of compression. You get a lot of compression in terms of those off days. There aren't many of them. Realistically, too, and this is still the case, when we briefly entertained whether this would work a couple years ago, we don't have access to the same consumer products that you have. Bank charges for us to do the little deposit check thing. So we would be spending, we'd be spending $100 a month for that unit, plus the per item fee, which is more than the per item fee if you actually take them to the bank, which makes no sense to me, but that's the fee schedule they have. Because I looked at it, like, if we do your work for you, why does it cost me more than you doing your work? Remember having this conversation. So the numbers were really strange that way. So even if we wanted to change policy, the numbers, you might pay less mileage, but you end up paying more in banking fees.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And so let me be clear why this is a concern again, because I looked at this and I've noticed this for a couple of years and never said anything, and it was brought to my attention. So I got a concern about it, and I want to have an answer for if it comes up at deliberative, or I could tell whoever asks me. Because also when I was offered in my business that I can do the picture thing, which will never happen with me, but I was offered, so I know it exists. I'm not about to change the policy, but because I can't, but I want to talk about it because it's more than just that gas, by the way. It's the town clerk, it's time. It's got to be an hour by the time you go down to the bank and back. So we're talking it could be $70 a day in lost productivity where you could be, processing paperwork. And so that's why I'm asking the question. And I read this, it does say funds. I agree, but modern technology is allowing funds to be, so just the law didn't catch up with it yet. Because in 1990, when I took credit cards in my business, I had to slide the paper and have the copy. That didn't automatically go in the bank. I still had to go deposit that. Nowadays, a credit card, town clerk does not have to go deposit credit cards, so that doesn't count. So what I'm saying is modern technology is changing that. If Jason made a good point, and it's not there yet, then it's not there yet. That's fine. But I asked the question.
It's there. The problem is the structure, the fee structure of the bank isn't there. There's also an overriding reason that we have funds deposited on a daily basis. In 2008, when I came back to the Board of Selectmen, we had just suffered a theft by the town treasurer. That town treasurer basically decided that he needed to use those funds that he had access to float his credit card debt. And part of the reason for that is he had those in his possession for longer than needed. When we took and revamped the systems that the town would use to protect itself, one of the things we required was that those funds get deposited daily, because we did not want people to have access to the funds for an extended period of time.
And I agree, and I heard you talk about it at the meeting, and there's two things. Again, I'm not going to make any motions here, and again, I appreciate the discussion, but two things that are different now. One is we have a town administrator, which got an eye on things, and number two is you guys are now appointing the town treasurer, and that was the main reason when you brought that to warrant, why you had to appoint the town treasurer.
No.
It was because there was thefts and you need to...
The reason that we wished to appoint the town treasurer was so that we could perform background checks.
Okay.
In an elected position, you can't perform a background check.
To help with something like this. So again, I'm okay with this budget. If the selectmen choose, maybe they'll review the policy when the fees start changing and we can get more productivity at the town hall because we'll have a person there for another hour of the day, which we don't have now.
All right. Anything else for accounting? All right.
Yeah, just a question. Do we need $150 for seminars for the budget committee?
For
For the
seminars?
budget committee? Are we
What
going
was
to spend $150 next year for seminars?
How much did you spend this year?
I don't know.
We
I didn't go to
spent
any.
At $450.
You spent $450 this
How much
year
did we
on
spend the
seminars.
year before?
Usually one or two people have
Probably would have spent like
gone.
75. I think the current single-person rate for budget workshop, and I can look it up, I think it's gone to $85 a person. And so you would,
If anybody goes. to
yeah,
it.
exactly. And so
That's
you
fine.
normally, I've planned on one or two people going.
If you guys don't think you go,
Yeah,
there you go, there's $150.
And then throwing it out to the committee, that's all. Are they plan- are you-
I
everybody
paid for
planning
my
on
own
going
when
next year?
I paid for my own when I went, and I'll continue to pay for my
Paid
own.
for the training.
Yeah, I've paid my own, so.
Any motions?
Yeah, I'll move $200 for the line.
You're going
Does it make it 200?
to, I know, where are you looking at?
I'm looking at 811 seminars. The
Okay.
proposed budget is 350, I move it to 200.
Okay.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded to move line 811 seminars from $350 to $200, a reduction of $150. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-2.
That was 350 to 100, right?
It eliminates
That
the
was
150.
350 to 200.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Right,
Yep.
so that one line.
So it's a reduction of $150. Anything else under accounting? Hearing none. Moving on to information technology, 4150.2. Any reductions, additions?
Boy, you got quiet in here quick.
Well, I'm waiting for someone to make a
Well,
motion here.
No, I want to, I'm just trying to get the right filters.
I can hear him clicking, which is why I'm assuming he's still searching for something.
Yeah, thanks. I will make a motion to reduce 630, which is the equipment maintenance account, by $12,000.
I'll second that.
That's the 16756?
Uh,
No.
Account 630, equipment maintenance.
Yeah, reducing it to 16,756?
Yes, sorry, yes.
Reducing it to 16 what?
756.
756. All right, discussion?
Was it second?
I second it.
Oh, yes, it was made, motion made and seconded. Discussion.
I think we've talked about this one ad nauseum.
So Mr. Spencer wasn't here?
Well, that's true, he wasn't here for this discussion. Right, so during last week's meeting, there was a very lengthy debate about the IT stipend within the budget, and long story short, right, the recommendation, although we can't physically recommend anything to the governing body, what we would like to see happen is that this be placed onto a warrant article. Therefore, my motion to remove.
Yeah, I don't know whether 12,000 is the right number for the position, because I wasn't part of the discussion. But my position is, it is truly a new position, and therefore it doesn't belong in the operating budget anyway, so I would support your motion.
Any further discussion?
I just want to make a comment. I hear what you're saying as far as the new position. What I'd be concerned about is that the person that's willing to do it for that type of money,
What person?
John Brunel.
You mean it wouldn't be posted as a job?
Well, right now it's not.
Oh,
We're talking about, we're actually talking about money, though. We're not talking
I know
about
we
who
are,
might fill
but
that
the entire
position.
time last week, we talked about the person, so we know who the person
And-
is.
And that was the point I made last
Yeah.
week, is it can't be about the person. It has to be about the position of the line item.
So what my concern was, is the person that they may have in mind walks away. You'd have to turn around and raise $50,000, maybe $100,000 for an IT person.
I would suggest that if we're going to put this to warrant, you put it as a full-time position to meet the demands of the town.
But we discussed we don't need
They
a
don't need
full-time
that.
position.
That's up to the governing body to.
If we needed somebody to do it, I don't even think we need an employee. We just, whatever the service is, there's IT services out there, right? Contractors that are not an employee of the town.
For a lot more expensive.
That's actually, I mean, you can make an argument that once you get an employee, they're a lot more expensive than a contractor, for most of the time, quite honestly. But I would, and then you don't need a warrant for contracted services because it's not an employee. So you can just pay for it, put it in the budget. So I would be, personally, I would be against, and I would vote to not recommend a brand-new employee for the town. And I would say just sub it out to the many services that are out there that does this. Because we do that now, right? We have contracted computer services, 6,000.
So I'll make a motion then to amend the motion to transfer the $12,000 to line, to the above that, to 6,000, which basically makes it flat.
All right, there is a motion to move the 12,000 to the line above contracted services. Is there a second?
is that motion appropriate? The motion on the floor is to reduce
I think
by
we have to vote
12,000.
on the motion.
Typically, you would make a
Yeah,
motion to change the
actually-
reduction, but not to move, I mean, he,
Yeah, I guess it kind of isn't the same, because yours, well, no, because your motion
He doesn't
is
even
to
need a
keep
motion
the
to move
12.
stuff in. The selectmen can move all they want on their own.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to fit. It doesn't seem to fit.
They don't need our permission to move anything.
That is not an appropriate amendment.
I'll make a motion then that we amend that to $88,756,
Which line item?
line 630.
You want to move it to what?
I'm amending it to $88,756.
88,000?
756?
Based on what?
Based on $60,000 to go out and hire some folks to contract service the equipment.
That's an easy one to vote on.
All right,
Well, it
is
says
a motion,
anticipated replacement cost $50,000.
a motion is,
Plus.
$60,000.
hold on, before you even discuss it.
Let's get this out of the way.
A motion has been made to increase that line to $88,756. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll
Is there a
second
se-
it.
I mean,
You can't second it. Is there a second?
if Mr. Byron wasn't laughing so much like it was a joke, I would second it, but
All right,
I think I'll pass on this.
Motion
It's going to get late, Chris.
Motion fails for lack of a second. So we're back to the original motion, which is a reduction of $12,000. I would like to say that I believe you've identified a problem. You have a volunteer working to do something now. You've decided that it needs to be, you're looking in the future that you may not be able to rely on a volunteer, and you need to come up with a plan. I don't think this is a plan. I think you need to have if it's not going to be, even if it is a volunteer, but if it's not going to be a volunteer, you need a job description, you need to know how many hours, you need to have something laid out. And I don't have enough information. And I'm not opposed to having it in the budget if I had a job description and an understanding of how this was going to be a valid number. So I am in support of the motion because I think that it needs to be done a different way. But not for the same reason that everybody else seems to be for it. That makes sense. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of a reduction of line 630, equipment maintenance, by a reduction of $12,000 to $16,756, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
So that is 5-3, excuse me. Motion passes. Any other reductions, additions?
New position.
Mm-hmm.
You said you would not put new positions in the operating budget when you get elected.
It's a position that
It's
is,
voted.
It's a new
Yeah.
position.
Under the water.
Yep.
Under the bridge.
Discussion afterwards if you want to.
Same thing to Cindy. I'll tell you the same thing.
She
Any,
voted in favor of it.
Hmm?
She voted in favor of the reduction.
No. As far as a new position being in the operating budget, both people said when they got on the stand before being elected that they would support what the voters had said, that they would go on warrant articles. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
any further reductions? Hearing none, we'll move on then from information technology to tax collection, 4150.4. Any changes? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to 4153.1 legal. Any changes?
We talked about this one last week as well. Bill, Mr. Spencer, I don't know if you had arrived for this part of the budget discussions. Legal, were you here for that?
I'm sorry?
Were you here for our legal discussions last week when we talked about this budget?
I think so.
Okay. I didn't recall where you
I think
arrived at.
all I missed, I think, was the IT
Okay.
discussion.
I mean, we talked about, what's the right number. It's kind of a shot in the dark. I think personally, 20,400 seems a little high. I'm not going to make any recommendations. I'm not, because I think, I don't want to put the town at risk for the what if, but it sounds high. So it's something I will be monitoring.
What happened to your history analysis? Can we review the history on this one?
Sure. You've changed providers. Right?
Yeah. Well, we've changed,
Not-
and honestly, that's why it's hard
Circumstances
for us. We changed providers, we changed approach,
Yeah.
so,
And believe me, I've looked at that.
yeah, I mean, we went from
The
like 60,
60s.
yeah, we went from 60 to 20.
Yeah.
So I may be off a couple thousand, but there's not a good margin. Yeah.
All right, no changes for legal. Moving on to 4197.1, advertising and regional associations. Any changes there?
Yeah, what the heck, I'll make a motion to cut 560 NHMA membership, 67 minus 6715.
All right, there's a motion to reduce line 560 dues and subscriptions by what did you say, 500? $6,715. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
It's, I mean, I don't see the value in it. You could still anybody could still take the classes, you just gotta pay a couple bucks more if you need the classes. But we could vote on it.
I think the discussion last week was that this is the reason, part of the reason that our legal fees are substantially lower, because we have, our administrator and selectmen can rely on some of the information from the New Hampshire Municipal Association rather than going to our legal counsel all the time for every little question. Any
This
fur-
is a fixed amount, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's based on a percentage and share.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of reducing line 560 dues and subscriptions by $6,715, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Aye.
Any abstain? Motion fails 2-6. Any other changes? All right, moving on to street lighting.
Supporting Kristen.
Dan.
Actually, did
Oh,
not support
no,
it,
for the vote, sorry.
because I buy into the reduced legal fees part
You did the motion for discussion.
for discussion.
Yeah. All right, anything on street lighting?
You sure the number's right?
For God's sake. Sure.
Okay.
All right.
I was willing to increase this one.
I'll just shut off lights.
Hearing nothing, moving on to solid waste.
A rolling blackout.
43-21-1.
For ramp stop signs, we also-
Any changes, any,
Sanitation, so.
I have to say, I was really impressed with this presentation. That gentleman worked so hard to find not only the best dollar, but researching, do they really recycle, and who's going to recycle well, and who's going to, I mean, I was so impressed with the personal interest he took in the town's welfare.
Yeah.
Any,
No, I agree. I just, to, second what you had mentioned, it was a well worth tour, right? And we learned quite a lot about the needs of the facility, and I think they're doing everything that they can to manage their budgets properly.
any changes to the solid waste? Hearing none. Moving to welfare, 4445.
This is called under. I don't know, we can't.
Who doesn't want the name of the water?
Yes, I have a motion. Last week, we had discussed, well, I'll make the motion first. I'm gonna, line 824, housing, I'm gonna reduce that to $10,000, so a reduction of $2,250.
Okay, there's a motion for line 824, housing, a reduction of $2,250, leaving $10,000. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been made and seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, you know, I want to stress the importance of funding this, right? And by no means is this proposed reduction suggesting otherwise. The recommendation or proposal is simply because we've never needed the full 20,000, right? So I'm trying to come up with that number. We talk about shots in the dark and guessing and, you know, trying to make an educated guess. But I'm also trying to balance, you know, I'm also trying to balance, you know, the tight budgets that we need to run to make sure it's reasonable for our voters, right? I think 17,750 as a bottom line to this is reasonable.
Any further discussion?
What have we spent so far this year for the total account?
Hold on a sec.
6,980 is what I had.
Yeah, yeah, of course, I'm looking, the report I'm looking at doesn't have the handy total, but that sounds about right.
About 7,000.
About 7, yeah, I'd say 7 to 8,000.
I don't have the latest.
Yeah,
expense
yeah,
report.
yeah. so-
7,492.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because a
And
couple
it's
just
still
went out
over.
last.
I think well under 15,000
Yeah.
this year,
Right.
well under.
Yeah, and
I think there's still more room here, but I'm not gonna.
Right.
I still think it needs.
Well,
Hey, my
not a
motion
bottom
is
line.
what'd you take it down to?
10,000.
17,750 from a bottom line perspective. It was 20. I took it down to 17,750.
I'd amend because it's really bottom line I addressed, but I'll amend your motion on housing to $9,000.
Okay, there is an amendment to reduce housing by an additional $1,000, leaving $9,000 in that line. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Discussion?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I agree with Andrew that there's more money than we need there, and I think he was being very conservative, and I took a little less conservative, but I would have probably come in with 15, but I didn't, so.
Well, I think
It-
in any
it-
event,
you know,
we
it's-
agree there's plenty of room here, right? What's the right number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right, on the amendment, making the housing allowance $9,000, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So that's 5-3, motion passes. So now, the line for 524 housing stands at $9,000. And,
You need to vote the main motion.
yes, we need to vote the main motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of a $9,000 for housing, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-3. Any other changes to the welfare budget? Hearing none, moving on to patriotic purposes. Any changes to patriotic purposes? Hearing none, moving on to debt service, which is 0. All
It
right.
should be 0.
No, there's a dollar there.
One.
Mine
Oh,
says-
Up
you-
under
yep,
10,
yep.
there's a dollar.
Yep, okay. You're right. Does anybody want to change that? Okay, there's a dollar. All right, that is ready for today. The next item is member input, new business. I just want to say that I did send to Brian a question. After the last meeting, we talked about end-of-the-year financials for the school. We pointed out to Bill we had received something on September 18th. Bill took a look at it, said that's what he was looking for. I took a look at it and realized that all we got was a copy of the MS-27, and that is not what we usually get. We usually get a line by line by line. So I did then forward to Frank an explanation of what we were looking for. I know he is out this week, so we don't have it, but that is the information that has been passed on. The other thing is, I believe we were directed to Frank about setting up tours to look at, as we did with the town, to look at the school facilities
Yeah,
and
the
and
board can
whatnot.
just go through you and then go through Frank.
So, and again, he's out this week, so that hasn't happened yet. So just want to bring you up to speed on those two items. Any other member input or new business? Bill?
I know the library budget will be reviewed at some point in time. It's been a long time since I've seen an actual report on the library.
You know what, we haven't had a report from the library in a while, have we? Can we?
Not yours, not yours.
What?
Not yours.
Yeah, but mine's easy. You see 4 checks. Now, I can send a note to the library and ask that a report.
Yeah, because their budget is just basically one line. So it'd be nice if we had some backup before they came to present it, so we could see what was going on.
Which,
Up to them.
and actually, if you look at your library sheet electronically and click on where it says more info, the more info will be,
Explanation.
there'll be a touch of information, and if you click on where it says library appropriation,
Library, I see library.
where it says 960, library appropriation, it is linked there. I will make the link more readily apparent or pull it back on the other page. Their data, their full discussion is already shared with you. It just may not be obvious that it's there.
Well, no reason to look at it yet, because we,
Right,
Yeah, I just.
all I'm saying, we haven't seen any actual.
right, but I know what you're saying about actuals too, so,
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, if you can point out
I-
to me where to go, I don't see.
yeah, I'll see if I can make it more obvious.
Okay. Yeah, I just, we have not had a report, and like I said, I looked at it and I was hoping we were gonna get more detail than I could find anyways. All right, anything else, member input, new business? All right, public input? Nobody in the audience? Hearing nothing, motion to adjourn.
So maybe.
Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You can
Aye.
stay if you want. All right, we are adjourned. We will meet again next week at the same time.